Welcome back, everybody. This is Mark 155 of Geeks Chasing Squirrels across the multiverse. You know the old saying, glutes are cute, but obliques are for freaks. That's right. We got a lot of stuff to talk about this week, and finally, we get to review a new movie. DC has put out Black Adam, the long-anticipated Black Adam. We all got a chance to see it opening night, and we're going to talk about that. But we have some other stuff as well. House of the Dragon, Penultimate, Lower Decks, Penultimate, and Andor continues to roll along. So not as many shows this week, but we have some fun stuff to talk about. With me, as always, my homies, Sarah and Ross. Sarah, what's going on?
I think I'm good for the most part. It's Friday. The week is over. It's been interesting. Got to hang out at the fair on Tuesday, which I think, Ross, you got a chance to do that too. We're talking about the state fair in Raleigh, North Carolina. Ate too much food. I think I'm still feeling the effects of it, but hey, live only once, right? It's once a year.
Right.
I'm glad it didn't happen. I didn't go today because I probably would have ate my whole body weight.
There are a few days a year that you're allowed to just pig out on whatever you want to. Thanksgiving, of course, and anytime you go to a fair, I would consider that another one. Although going to a fair and eating is totally different than going to like an amusement park and eating.
Yeah.
Like I want to eat fair food.
Oh, yeah.
I do not want to pay for food at an amusement park.
Fair food, there's like certain things you expect.
Right.
Want everything fried, number one.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend the fried cheesecake. That was phenomenal.
I didn't even see that until the end. I finally came across it. And then I was walking further down and I was like, oh, what was the other thing you said? Pigtails? I was like, oh, there's that.
Yes. Oh my
What the hell are
gosh, that was
pigtails?
so good. It's basically a skewer and it's got bacon and then it's deep fried, with the batter.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put maple syrup and powdered sugar, which I didn't get the powdered sugar because it always blows everywhere. But it was almost like it tasted like eating like pancakes and bacon.
That's insane.
It was so good.
Sounds delicious.
Yes.
I'm hungry all of a sudden. Well, Ross, what's up, man?
It's been a fair day.
Yeah.
What can I say?
Yeah. I did not get to go to the fair this year. My daughter did get to enter some artwork into the fair, but I didn't get to go. So.
Oh yeah, which
Not
was
only
absolutely
enter,
amazing.
Win.
Oh, enter and win. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and she might be doing
amazing.
some fan pages for some stuff here pretty soon. So I'll keep y'all posted on that. It'll be pretty cool. Well, we usually start with our House of the Dragon, but Cody's not here right now. He's doing the C3 Panthers podcast.
I'm sure they're
Friday
probably
free
wild
for
right
all,
now.
and I can only imagine that tonight after the news it's a pretty crazy night. We got rid of our only piece, really the only chess piece we have, just about, and Christian McCaffrey's gone. I put in the show that we were probably going to talk about this a little bit, and I'm sure Cody's got a lot going on. There's probably 1 million people on the show and in the chat room right now. So instead of starting with that tonight, we'll hold off on that for him because I know he wants to talk about House of the Dragon. So y'all want to get started on something quick like Lower Decks? Yes.
Dude, we got to catch up. We didn't talk last week.
Yes,
We didn't talk about last week. So I'm going to start with Sarah, mainly because she's the Star Trek. She's my Star Trek guru. And I don't remember as much of last week's episode because I was getting so much stuff together. And I've just been so overloaded with new content this week. I'm catching up on Rebels and reading Fire and Blood. So I've got a lot of stuff I'm catching up on. So Sarah, start talking about it and I'm sure it'll jog my memory and we'll get going. So let's go.
Well, it starts off, they're in a holodeck. You've got Boimler. He's in one of his, what do they call it? I had to look at it. It's like the crisis point, which apparently is like their movie.
2.
Yeah, 2.
Now I remember. Yep.
So they were in the midst of doing that. So basically you had the Cerritos that was under fire or whatnot. And then you had, oh God, what was Boimler's character's name? I can't remember off the top of my head, but he comes.
Captain Dagger.
Yes. He comes swooping in to save the day. But yeah, it's like I'm trying to think back because I watched this at like 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
So what is this? They're running a simulation where they're creating a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is this just something to do in their free time? I suppose.
Well, it's almost like in Voyager, you had Paris and and Kim. They did their they had some kind of like black and white. It was almost like a Flash Gordon type thing they were going on. Was it Captain Proton?
Oh, so I can't even remember those names.
So that's something like they would like do, and it was cool because it was black and white. I think Captain Janeway, her character, I can't remember. It was like some kind of spider thing or whatever. But it was just like they go in. It's just kind of just like just for fun. Same thing with Next Generation. Picard would go in and he would be what was it, Dixon? He was like a private investigator, like like from the 40s or something along those lines. So and even with Captain Janeway, she'd go in and she would have holodeck programs where she would be talking to who was it? Oh shit. Oh, it wasn't Galileo, it was Da Vinci, where she would like just it's just that's just programs they create just for
Oh
fun.
wow, I remember that now that you just brought that up.
That's why I know, kind of jumping a little bit, but like with the next Picard, that's where Moriarty comes from, because that was in Picard's, or it was like one of the holodeck programs or whatever. So, anyways, sorry, that's my squirrel. But yeah, so they were doing their little movie and whatnot, and apparently Boimler got some bad news and like totally brought just like destroyed his chill, and then of course, Beckett's like, "What are you talking about? What are you doing? Let's do this." And Boimler's like, I don't care. Whatever. Boimler's not being his, normal cheery self. So then they go through, and I'm trying to think, help me out, Ross, here. What was the actual issue they had?
Oh, it was William, the twin.
Yeah.
It was pronounced dead. How did he die though? Gas leak, I think is what it was.
Yeah, it was like in his sleep.
Yeah.
And then Boimler was like, "Oh my gosh!" It's like, that's like a horrible way to die. So he didn't even do anything. But
So he has an exact replica of himself. Like, have
yes.
we ever seen this in the show before, or is that just
Not in
I
this
don't
show.
remember. Not in this show. Okay.
No, we've seen his clone in this show, haven't we not?
I don't
There's a whole
recall.
episode about William.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it was like not in this season. I think it was in the finale
Actually,
arc of last season.
now I think about it, I do remember something about that in the finale last season, because we were wondering what was going to happen with him. And
Because he got to go on a better assignment than
Mm-hmm.
this Boimler did. And so
Right.
that was the whole thing, is that, like he felt comfortable with the other, with it wasn't like a natural born twin, whatever it was came from a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And cloned himself essentially, and his clone got to go and like live out his dream of like, I don't know why I want to say Enterprise, just because it's the name and always gets dropped for ships, but he definitely got a better posting than this Boimler did. So it really reigns true to the fact that their little movie that they're making
Mm-hmm.
is in a universe that's called the Vindictiverse. And so it's very funny because, like, everyone's trying to more or less find happiness, I guess. When you're a lower decker and you're an ensign, you're at the bottom of the bottom. So they're all trying to reach higher up. And think about how cool it would be, like, what if you were in control and you were the one that made all the decisions? That's the fantasy they get to live out literally a couple doors down, maybe, from where they actually sleep at night. So how cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty
But
sweet.
William gets to break he ends up breaking. Oh, why am I forgetting this Boimler's first name? What's his first name? Bradward. So he breaks his whole spirit just by passing away from a gas leak, which comes full circle kind of at the end. So
Really? How so? I don't recall it coming full circle at the end. You can go ahead and
because
spoil it.
William's not dead.
Oh, well.
William's going to go to Section 31, which is like the dark side of the Starfleet. It's where all the dirty CIA stuff goes down.
So dropping seeds for future shows.
Oh, most likely.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I said, I'm the end was the part that I didn't pay the most attention to, trying to get caught up with the show last week. So that would definitely be a part I would have missed, and that's kind of that's crazy. Kind of makes me want to go back and watch it, but
it's just a real quick blip. I mean, it literally is like the last 15, 20 seconds of the episode, I think, but just enough to kind of throw you in there. I know that I found enormous humor. Was it Stevens leaned against the warp core, and so when they're dragging him in, like in like a background scene, what I love about this show is that all the background stuff that happens, it reminds me almost of It reminds me of like Rocco's Modern Life, like when that show was on TV,
Yeah.
there's always stuff happening in the background that you didn't really pay attention to. And in this show, like when Stevens leaned on the warp core, he was dying and like melting like a nuclear death. And so it was real funny seeing them.
Yeah. Oh. I'm trying to think. I don't really remember as much about last week's. Was there anything about last week's y'all wanted to bring up, or y'all want to move on to this week's? Because I do remember this week's. Just watched that one recently.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I got is I was a little. They played the opening scene, I think, at Comic-Con for one of their trailers. And so when you think that Boimler is actually going to be Bold Boimler and like be in charge for some weird reason, he, so many steps down would lead him to be in a captain's chair. When I saw it in their little creation world, I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. I kind of wanted to see whether it be him or William Boimler, see actually what came of it. But
when you say they showed their part at Comic-Con, which little clip are you talking about?
I mean, they did like a teaser trailer, and it opened up with the scene where the captain was thankful that the Wayfarer came through, and Boimler was in charge, and Beckett, which, like I said, her name being Commander Doodle is absolutely hilarious. So, what do you want your name to be? I don't know, Doodle.
But there was also some other cool. Now I remember some of the stuff because it had like the time jumping type deal. Because remember, it had like the crystal they were trying to keep from, what was it, Romulans?
Yes.
And did you hear a little name drop from a little coastal area that we happen to be familiar with?
With Kitty Hawk?
Yeah, I was like, ah. Yeah. And I thought it was funny, is like how Beckett was like, oh, what going time would like stop Kennedy assassination or that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, that's just crazy. But just seeing them going back and forth, with the time stuff, that was hilarious. That was hilarious, especially Rutherford trying to steal the clothes off the folks from '82. I'm like, oh my god! He's like, oh, this jacket, these pants don't fit. Can we go rob somebody else with the pants that fit?
Rutherford's by far.
I'm loving him every episode.
He's great. Yeah.
And then Tindy's getting mad at him. She's like, why don't you take this serious? He's like, this is fun. I'm like,
oh, that's right, because they were doing their own side arc.
Yes, because they were the one that was chasing, trying to get the crystal back. So.
I remember Sulu was thrown in there. They're talking about Captain Sulu.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the context of it though.
No, they ended up somewhere like a ranch, and they had Kirk on the mailbox, and so when they walked in, they were, I guess, expecting to see Kirk, and then they saw Sulu.
Oh, and not your future that you wanted. Yeah, it was good.
That's what I love about Lower Decks. I mean, it's like they have their own little adventures, but yet, like I said, you still kind of drop these Easter eggs, and it just makes it fun. It's just fun.
Yeah.
That's a great way to describe it, Ross. It's a toy box.
It is a toy box. You get to go in and play.
Mm-hmm.
And then this week's episode, they do it even more.
Well, it's so fun because y'all know so much more about Star Trek. Like, y'all see so many more things than I do, and it's so great. But I still watch the show and enjoy it so much more. So it's like, even not even knowing the little bitty Easter eggs they put in or little bitty drops they have, it's still just a fantastic show, fun to watch. Mm-hmm. I didn't even think about the way you described it as the things going on in the background. You described it as Rocco's Modern Life, and I'm like, that's a really, really good comparison right there, because that's kind of the way Rocco's Modern Life was, which is a great show too, by the way. Yeah. Well, y'all want to go this week's episode?
Yep.
Because this week's episode was kind of crazy. I couldn't. I know it was episode 9. It felt like a finale to me until maybe the last minute of the episode. I was like, wow, okay, I could see them making this finale and setting up for next season based on where they've gone with this one. But I guess they have one more left, so this is the penultimate. Mm-hmm. But it was a pretty good build-up, the show-wise. There's, once again, another show being done within the show. Like last time they're doing a movie, this time they're doing a documentary. And they're being kind of examined, I guess you'd say, or interviewed. And I like how the captain has picked all the people she wants to be interviewed because she thinks that they're going to tell them the best stuff in the world. And we also end up seeing what happens. This was a very Mariner-heavy show, this episode. So, which is great because I love that character. So, what did y'all think about this?
It was heavy, but it wasn't like it was a... it was heavy in a way to where it's not like it wasn't on the nose. I mean, I think the whole entire episode did really good just pointing out the fact that she was upset and something was clearly happening. And I love the twist that they did with the end of it. Um, at the beginning, the whole thing being Project Swing By, I just thought that name was simply funny. It's like, hey, because how many times have you said that to someone before? Like, hey, I'm gonna swing by and see what you're up to,
see how you're doing
like later on, and so that being so funny because it's such a nonchalant phrase that you would use to say to somebody, but it was so important to the captain. Like it was like her. It was going to be like her almost like manifesto, like it was going to be her big thing that she was going to contribute to Starfleet. And it was just such a good paradox. And when you mixed in the whole thing with Mariner and the mom and the rest of the crew, and like Mariner's the one that's going to screw it up and everyone's just sitting there waiting for her. And I love that like no one sided with her because it's kind of, you're at that point with people sometimes where you're just like, this is you. I don't think you really realize that, but like everyone expects this from you.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very end, we get the twist to where, Beckett was the only one that said anything heartwarming and lifting and positive about the whole entire shit. Whereas everyone else is just, I don't want to say treating it in a manner that's like unprofessional, but describing things and thinking back and laughing about it. And if you weren't there, then the context is totally lost. So the rest of us that watch the show and have that, omniscient point of view, we're all like, that's right. All that stuff is so hilarious. And that's the angle that they're giving you from the rest of the crew. So for the rest of the crew to actually screw up everything for the captain was really funny because it reminded me of that Stress episode where she's stressing out trying to get everyone to be calm, and then it's the exact flip opposite. Everyone's very calm and very cool with it, and the captain's just completely spun up in circles.
Oh yeah, and they even bring that episode up within this episode. Damn it, I forgot what I was going to say. I hate when I have something around the tip of my tongue and I just.
Well, another thing that's interesting too is because remember the episode where you had the other crew that came in and they, then you had the ones from the lower decks. They're like, oh, it's like we got to be cool, we got to do, and then they were saying like the other crew, they were like, kind of like nonchalant and aloof, like, but then come to find out, they're like, oh, we thought you guys are cool, you guys are, Then that's the thing. That's the crazy thing. That's one of the themes throughout the show is everything's not as it seems. It is all fun. It's, you try to be serious, you try this, but there's like this underlying current of where it's like crazy things are going to happen, but it's not always as bad as you think it is. It's like, it's kind of like when, you're in school and you're about to take that test and you're like, oh my God, this is like the worst thing ever. But it's like, you know what? It's not really. It's like adulthood. You know how you're thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to be grown. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I can't wait to be grown. Now I'm like, you know what? I would not have any problems whatsoever if I dropped back and went back live with my parents. Everything would be fine, It's like, but bills in life are just not all they're cracked up to be. But yeah, it was just really interesting in this one where Captain, she was like all about, yeah, okay, awesome. Well, we're, get to do this program and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, oh, well, we'll have this reporter. And as soon as it went, the link went dead, she's like, damn it. And they're like, what? And she's like, this reporter's like, we're all screwed up. We got to make sure everything's right. I'm like, and she even knows it's crazy.
And everyone else is laughing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're just like, oh, well, that's just the way it is.
We have to clean this ship up. Like, we can't clean this shit up. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know, right? And then they're like, oh, damn, she's serious. So it's like, yeah, it was. I'm just like, I felt like I was talking to my kids. It's like, that's how they see me, I guess. It's like they don't listen to me unless I lose my shit. But oh well.
I remember what I was going to say now. Ross, you brought up the point about how nobody sided with Mariner in this episode. Like at the end, just everybody expected that she was the one who said all this stuff. But when they discovered what was said, like, why would nobody side with her at that point? Is my question. Like, well, wouldn't they know that they were the ones who said these things? It was really, really strange. Like, nobody siding with her. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like they would know, but I guess it's the plot point for the show.
Yeah. No,
what was the place she got? Yeah. What was the place she got sent to?
Starbase 80.
Starbase 80? Is that a thing in Star Trek, or is it just something they made up for this?
think it was something that it didn't sound familiar to me.
Just something silly they made up. Okay.
Well, all the star bases themselves are
Mhm.
places that most people don't want to get sent. Everyone wants to go out in space, Like if you're not out there
Mhm.
doing a thing, then you're not.
You don't
doing
really
a
want to
thing.
like sedentary. It's like you'd rather be like
Mhm.
on a ship so you can be out and doing your thing.
But the whole rest of the episode was highly rooted in Star Trek lore. I mean, the simple fact that they went to a planet that Picard had first
Mhm.
contact with, that was a famous episode. That was in the second season.
So
Way
that's a
back
real
when.
episode. Picard makes contact with this planet. He
Oh,
gets
yeah.
them. He cures them, I guess was the thing, and then they get addicted to the cure. And he
Well,
cuts them off from the cure. That was kind of the
They-
premise of what they were saying.
they cut off connection between the two worlds, and so they're almost like sister worlds.
Mhm.
And one was essentially screwing the other one over. I have not watched the episode forever, so I don't remember all of it, but I know
Right.
that I do believe that it's all fairly accurate what they were talking about. But it was very funny how the the one world is completely taken care of, and not only that, they're all fitness freaks. To turn around and have the one that was the protagonist in the Next Generation ended up being like the trouble world. So, but man, it all like once again toy box. They went in and picked out something they wanted to play with, and they did it in this episode.
Yeah. And that's actually the scene where they at the end there, the protagonist at the end, they introduce the Texas class, the manless ship.
Mhm.
I like how the captain's like, "What the fuck just happened?" So, because I thought for sure that was going to be something with Mariner coming in, and
I know,
saving
I
the
did
day.
too. I was thinking she's like probably like jump ship or something. Told these gross garbage guys like, peace out. I'm not doing this shit. So yeah, I was expecting that, but yeah, that was interesting.
Very, very much so. And I'm interested to see where they go moving forward with this, with unmanned ships in this show. Is that something in Star Trek too?
Slippery slope. I mean, there's been very minimally manned ships, but it's just the fact that it's kind of like the last episode. I mean, this one did a really good job of tying that point together to where like you have one non-functioning crew, or so they're put on blast by the interviewer, and then you have a complete other ship that has no people. And the funny thing is that she's more interested in that mainly because it's a story than anything else about what she was doing. So
Right.
well, Beckett does bounce.
Yeah. Well, that's something we hadn't talked about when we met this other. I cannot remember that character's name. But she was shady.
Archaeologist.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we met. We were like, it's like, could something happen? I remember even Greg saying, "It's like, think they're setting something up." Yeah. You have your answer.
Oh, if you don't like her, then why didn't you delete her phone number?
Exactly.
That is true. Well, anything else from Lower Decks? We got the finale next week, and then do we have any information on the next season?
No, I mean, if they don't do something with their live crossover that they were talking about, then then there's definitely another season coming because they have all that stuff done. The more that I've thought about it, the more that I've wondered if that announcement at Comic-Con was like for next season or if it was for this season. I think it'd be a cool cliffhanger to go out on. So we'll see.
We'll find out. Yeah, definitely.
And I'm assuming, because I have not looked, that it's only 10 episodes. So I don't know if they'd have done more. Normally, I'm pretty sure every season of this has been 10 episodes.
Okay. Pretty safe bet. No. All right. Well, let's move on. Cody's not here for House of the Dragon, so we'll hold off of that. Let's get on to Andor, I guess. Oh, hold on. You're up.
Refresh me and talk about your little Rebels journey real fast. What have you watched this week?
About that. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Break into it.
So I was sitting down the other day and just laying down in bed, and I don't even know what's on the TV, and I'm just looking on my phone. I was like, this would be a good time to catch up with some Rebels. So I was like, okay, where did I leave off at? And I left off on like season 2, episode 2, and I was like, okay, cool, let's just get started. So I hit play on it, and it took me a few minutes to get back into it, to remember everything, like where we're at in the situation, everything. But the episode that I walked back into was the episode with Rex and Gregor and the other, and they're, I guess it's the first time you see AT-ATs. because or the first time they've seen them because they're amazed by their 4 legs and how they're staying balanced. It's going to something's going to come into play whenever they've mentioned a few times about their, wow, how are they staying balanced with 4 legs? So it was pretty cool, and I was like, wow, this is really neat. And then just following the lore after that, it's just like, wow, this is a show that if you showed me pictures of it, I'd be like, it looks cool, but I'm not that interested. But when you actually sit down and watch it, and you pay attention to the story they're going through and the emotional connections and everything here, and you're starting to connect dots with Ahsoka and this and that, you're like, oh, this is good. This is really, really good, to the point where I'm really locked in and interested now. And you go through like 6 episodes, and you don't even realize you've gone through 6 episodes. So I'm really enjoying this catch up with Rebels. I think I'm on episode 10 or 11 of season 2. There's 22 episodes in season 2, 23 in season 3, and then I think 15 in season 4. So I still got quite a bit to catch up with, but I'm going to be pounding through those pretty quickly because that's kind of my downtime show now. And I've got the whole rest of the weekend off, so I'll definitely be watching some more Rebels. But it's fun. I'm waiting to see when Thrawn comes into the show because I know that he's in this show. But I'm still yet to see anything about Thrawn in this show so far. I've seen a lot of Inquisitor stuff. And I'm totally down to see Ezra live action. Like the more and more, I remember the first time I saw his lightsaber, I was like, that is the stupidest looking lightsaber ever. However, as far as functionality goes, it's genius. It is absolutely genius. And I'm like, I would probably carry one of those. So I like his lightsaber, and I'm really interested to see how they do that live action. To be honest with you,
and not to mention you got a face. Well, I mean, you'll have to go into more. You got to finish the show first before you talk about that. But you do have his like the actual actor to go off of now. So you got reference, and there's more that you're going to learn about Ezra as the show goes. By the time you make it to the end of the show, so you'll have a not totally different. You have quite a bit of a different. I guess, what you're going to get out of his character come live action. So now, did you make it to did you make it to Fulcrum? Did you make it to
I'm trying to remember the last spot that I was at. The last spot that I remember being at is a new Inquisitor has come into play, or there's 2 of them. There's 2 Inquisitors. There's a female one that has like a metal face mask. Looking face mask, and then there's a new one that's I can't remember the Dick head's name. That's the general or whatever for the Empire that's always after them with the mutton chops. But he kind of he kind of like he gets on his ship and he's like, I don't need your help. He's like, I've got this. He's like, y'all just stand back and I've got this. And he goes and so I'm at that point. I don't know exactly where it's at in the episode or where it's at in the season. I really need to get a refresher. Like I said, I need to sit down and really pound through like 6 or 7 episodes at a time because so much content I'm taking in. That and reading Fire and Blood, man. Like that book is like reading Genesis. Like, it's crazy. Like the first chapter is like so and so begot so and so, and then they begot so and so and begot so and so, and the problem is there's only like 6 names they use in the whole Targaryen like chain of command or house family tree, so you don't know who's who. So taking that in has been crazy too, but trying to stick to Rebels. I remember the 2 Inquisitors, and I'd really have to go back and get a description of the last episode to really get a grasp on what I've where I'm at with it. To be honest, just taking in so much stuff.
All that I say, like, because I love like as much as like Sarah, you're into like Funko Pops. Like I've always been into like the Lego sets. Like I love what they do with them, and they did one of the most coveted Lego sets is like the Ghost with the actual Phantom, and then one of the other ones I'm not sure if it's official or if it was a fan made, but that I think it was an ATTE was the actual house that they lived in that traveled, and because it was the first time you met Rex in this show, right? So if that was so, then that one that they lived in, like people actually made that, and like it was always cool because I'm a big fan of like all the UCS sets that they come out with. Like the last one they just came out with was the shoot, I'm blanking on it, and it like just came out like not too long ago. But they have like the big like $700 Falcon or $800 Falcon that you can get, and like the big Star Destroyer and all that kind of mess. And so all the smaller sets are still expensive, but it's funny seeing people making their own versions of it. And it's been so long that I can't remember if that was a set that actually came out or if that was a fan made one. But I remember seeing it and like saving pictures of it, and just like all the little like cranes and levers and all the stuff coming off of it. It's just absolutely pointless, but cool for them to use, I guess, when you're living on the thing.
Right.
So I do remember like the vehicles, and especially like the first scene of, especially like them being old and gray. Like it was all that stuff they want to talk about, like well, Rex is in Return of the Jedi and all that kind of mess. Well, this is what you want. This is what you want to see. Whether it be an animation or not. I mean, Clone Wars was all animation, so that's how you got to know Rex and most of all the other troopers, and that's how you got all that armor. But to turn right into Andor with the clone trooper armor and how it has all like progressed, you get to see. Was it what was the other show? Bad Batch. In Bad Batch, you get to see like the transition between Clone Wars going into, instead of the clone trooper armor, into like the stormtrooper armor. And so in Andor this week, they brought us back with that clone trooper armor, like that phase 2 armor. And so it was really cool to see live action, and with people in the suits, like not digital, not VFX or any of that mess, like to actually see people in the suits. And so I think that Andor is the perfect spot for them to do that, because I want to see so much of that more live action. Andor's been giving me that political show that I've kind of, the intrigue that I wanted, right? Like it's been kind of like a slow roll, but at the same time, like it's worked out very well to just tell enough of like, clenching the fist, as they call it. But I love seeing all the callback stuff. And this week, I love seeing that clone trooper armor. So from Clone Wars to Rebels to now here we are in Andor.
Yeah. You guys wanted to know the stuff. I'm sitting here looking through the episodes that I've been watching recently. Okay, so Wings of the Master is where Hera gets the ship and that can break through a blockade completely. This is the one where they steal the supplies for a planet, and the Empire set up a blockade in front of the planet, and she just blows right through it. And I thought that was pretty cool. There's the one where Sabine meets one of her old friends that's a bounty hunter. That's actually after her, and they end up having to work together. So that was pretty cool. And then I'm up to right now is the episode where Kenan and Rex disguise themselves as stormtroopers.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So that's where I'm at in the season so far. But, man, it's really good. Oh, yeah. And then the one episode I wanted to remember where Ezra is posing as Lando Calrissian. So I thought that one was pretty cool, too. And I was like, I'm wondering how long he's going to roll with this. And it's to the point where he gets caught. And it's like, okay. So now we see, I guess the guy, what's the guy's name? Hondo Okana is the guy that he's
Hondo.
with. Onaka. Onaka, yeah. Onaka. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it, man. Like I said, it's so cool. Because I know a lot of Star Wars, tie-ins and lore and everything, and seeing all this stuff, I'm like, oh, okay. Connect that dot, connect this dot, connect this dot.
And Hondo ends up in Bad Batch, and not only that, he's in was it Batu? It's the Disney. I think he's the one that gives you the spiel before you go on the Millennium Falcon ride at Disney.
Okay.
So I mean, like they
put
him all over the
live
place.
action Hondo?
Dude, who would play him? Who would play him?
There's got to be somebody for him, though. I mean, you could have. Who's the guy who played the Collector in the MCU?
Yep. You're talking Benicio del Toro?
Yeah, I could see Benicio del Toro playing him.
You need someone that's a little bit more. I don't know. He seems like he's a little too. I don't know. You need like a tall, skinny, lanky fella for that.
Joyvant, like you need someone that's just like with.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I had to think about that.
You just gotta have like question. That swagger. Hondo's got swagger. Mm-hmm. He's one that he annoyed me from the beginning, but the more you saw him, you're just like, especially there's like this one episode where he's like, "Oh, you help Hondo out." So I mean, it's like he becomes endearing, and it's kind of crazy saying that, but he does for real.
Well, you want us to let us walk that right into Andor? Ross, you said you saw the connection with the live action Stormtrooper
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So
Oh,
I have questions about this episode, especially the way it ended, but we'll start at the beginning and then move forward. When we get there, I'm going to have a couple questions I want to ask that y'all probably know right away. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is obvious. So this is post heist. This is the first episode post heist. This one definitely didn't have a ton of action in it. It was very, very story driven. So this is like, I'm assuming this whole episode is like a day or two after the heist. That's all it's covering is the first day or two after the heist. You see the ISB going crazy about it and trying to change their plan. And I liked the little back and forth between the two characters within the ISB. Couldn't recall their names at the moment.
Deidre and the other dude.
Yeah. That was pretty fun. But I don't know, man. We learned that they look at Clem or Andor as a loose end. So this is what rebellions look like, right? This is what they say. This is what the things that happen. So let's talk on that. Like, he's a loose end. So now not only is the Empire after him, not unknowingly who he is, but the people he was with are after him too. So everybody's after him.
Well, it seems like I believe her name is Clea, the assistant to Luthen's shop.
Mm-hmm.
It almost seems like that scene between her and Vale makes it seem like she has almost as much power, or she like decision making, or she's making a call or something, because it doesn't seem like it has like Luthen's praise behind the call. I only say that because, I didn't get any vibe that Luthen was going to kill the guy off or like want him, gone. It seemed like he went out of his way to actually get him involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be maybe a little bit more time. I figured maybe like, a week or two after like the heist is what I'm kind of feeling. But you're right. Like with the ISB side of it, first off, we got a character, the guy who was at the beginning making the announcements. It wasn't the major. It was the other guy with, I believe, the mustache. He is Lord Yularen, I think is his name. But you see him not only in the round table at the beginning of A New Hope, where Vader comes in and chokes the dude for saying that, like how, this battle station is, the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it. And then Vader just ends up choking him. But either way, Yularen sitting at the table is also in Rebels. I believe he's in Clone Wars. So, I mean, like the characters all over the place. So they said that he was that character at the ISB. And then later on in the ISB scene, you get the major basically telling everybody, like, like here's what all of you are going to do in your sectors. And then that's when you get the Deidre and the other lieutenant guys, which I can't remember his name. Levin?
Same with Blevin.
And so when you get their fight, and she basically says, well, what had happened was they opened up the Patriot Act, and I was okay to go and backdoor all this information because, like now there's no rules. And which she's right. And, it's clear that she has a much better grasp on how the rebels are, basically doing like guerrilla warfare in the universe. And so everyone else, I believe that there were books written in Legends that basically told how the simple fact that the Empire treated the entire universe like in sectors, that there was always loopholes that the rebellion was born in, and like how they were able to like navigate, hit here, hit here, hit here, hit here, so that they were able to be effective. But I think this is so early that it's showing the ineffectiveness by Clea telling Vel to kill Cassian. So many names. I'm trying to keep straight
right?
on the names.
It's a lot of names. It's a lot of names. Speaking of names, man, we got another one coming into the show here. Mr. Cody Lashney, the first of his name, the king of the Andals and the first men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and protector of the realm. Cody, how you doing, buddy?
I fare thee well, good sir. I fare thee well. Yeah, man. I only got 2 episodes left of Hot Deep. Well, 1 now, but this would be my second to last time doing this with y'all. So I made some time for y'all. I figured I'd come and hang out and like we've been doing, man. But Hey, if y'all aren't done with Andor or whatever y'all are talking about, don't let me rush you, man.
Okay, yeah, we'll finish the Mandor up, and then we'll hop right into the House of the Dragon here.
Cool,
so,
cool.
all right, let's keep going. Sarah, you want to pick up right where Ross is going there? Did
It's
you want to
like,
say anything?
Deer
Ross
in
had put
headlights.
some stuff out. I was giving you an opening there. I'm sorry. Would you like to?
No, I mean basically it's just the same thing that you've got the. I thought it was interesting in that room how you said Deidre was going up against Blevin because he was very smug. He's like, "Oh well, she basically stepped all over me," and dude, she like rattled off her reasons. She's like, duh, 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 duh. But what was so interesting after the fact is, and who was the lead fellow?
Oh, it'll be the major.
Yeah.
Man, I don't.
Anyways, the
blank
point
on his
is, he
name.
was like, "Oh, okay, so there you go. Somebody's on top of things."
Mhm.
And then when he asked her to walk with him, he's like, walk with me for a moment or whatnot. And they just take a few steps, and he just looks at her, or doesn't even look back, and just says, "Watch your back," and he just keeps rolling. So I'm like, "Ooh, the plot thickens."
Oh yes, very much so. Let's see. Endor's trying, or yeah, Cassian's trying to. Is this his mother or like his adopted mother? I guess.
In
Is
essence,
it,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
And he's basically trying to get her off the planet, and she's making a stand where she's at, which is good because you gotta this is what a rebellion needs, is for people to stand like this. And that's what the saying is: as long as there are people, there will always be evil, and until there are people, as long as nobody stands up against them, it will always win. And that's kind of the mindset she's going with. So he's got enough money to leave and take her and go. And I like how even what's the droid's name? Whatever.
B2 emo.
Yeah, it's got like a personality too. He's like, "Can I speak now?" And they're like, "No." He's asking in turn if he can say something, which is pretty cool. But she's not having any of it. She's not leaving. And it leads me to the end of this episode, which we're just jumping around. Like, is the end of this episode a flashback? Or is the end of this episode where he's left and this is his new life and he's left to?
Oh, you're talking about on the new planet, the
On the
party
new planet? Yeah, because he's got a whole relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And
He
and
left.
everything else.
He was like just doing his own thing. He's like,
So he's
"You
now
want me to
locked
disappear?
up.
I'll disappear." Because
Okay.
that's what his who was the girl?
Bix.
Yes, because she told him point blank, it's like, "You need to leave. We need to forget about you. You need to disappear." He's like, "Okay, 10-4," and he hopped back up over that wall.
And she was pissed that he actually came back. It kind of changed the whole entire. Well, it changed all of their lives, because now the Empire's there, being a part in their whole daily affairs. Whereas, the whole idea behind this entire episode is that they're closing their fists. They're tightening the noose, and it from the beginning they talk about it with talking about raising the tribute tax to anyone who's seen helping any sort of like rebellion shit. Period, like 5 times, like.
We're 5 times what was stolen.
What was stolen? Is that what they said?
5 times what was stolen. Yeah. So that's
and
what's
so
insane. Yeah.
You're talking about a ton, like right off the bat. These people don't have that money, and then you come to see at the very end, like you were going to say, which go ahead, talk about it on that planet, Neamos. I think it's NIAMOS or something, but
looks like Miami. Yeah.
Looking like Ryza.
It's the United Kingdom, dude. That's where they shot it.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty crazy. Like, okay, so he is getting. They're just pinning out people, and I guess anybody running, they're assuming, like, they're just picking people left and right, and saying you're with the rebellion, you're fighting for the rebellion or representing the rebellion, anything that has to do against the anti-empire, and it's just. I guess in that case, he absolutely wasn't. He was just walking to the store, but
and they were trying to give him shit because they're like, "What are you looking around for?" He's like, "Dude, I'm a tourist. What am I supposed to do?"
Right.
I don't know that.
Well, the reason why I thought this might have been a flashback was because he got sentenced to 6 years. Like, he's captured and sentenced to 6 years, and I was like, so is this like before, and we're going to go back to like 6 years later? Now he's out of prison or whatever. But no, I guess now he's in prison for 6 years for what would have been a 6-month sentence if he just kept his mouth shut, even though he really didn't say anything. He really wasn't doing anything wrong at all. But
no, those troopers had like zero fucks. And whenever, I love the scene when they brought the K droids, the KX droids in. He's like, what do you say? Hold him
yeah.
here.
Yeah. hold him
It's
here.
like,
and
don't
he-
use wrong verbiage. Don't use that word. He just meant keep an eye on me.
I thought that was pretty cool. I was wondering if you were gonna K2SO, is that the
Mhm.
one in Andor? Yeah, I thought that was gonna be I didn't know if they were gonna have something there about that, but I guess it's just a nice little nod.
Those droids
You're
were
gonna
not
see it one
playing. Did you
time.
see they're doing them
No.
themselves behind a wall? You're like, oh,
No, not
That's
at
what they're
all.
known
body's
for,
flying.
man. Like they are.
And that's the
I
thing,
think that's
too.
where the K comes from. They're killer droids, essentially.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is like if you see all that going on, of course you're going to be looking around. Why would you ask somebody why they're looking around when this is going on? The
No
droids are picking
doubt.
up people and dragging them and choking them. It's like, of course I'm going to be looking around, watching my back. But yeah,
Everything's an example, man.
yeah, I just wasn't sure if this was like I said, if that was a flashback simply because of the sentencing. So I imagine there's going to be some kind of rescue for him. And I love too how they, with all this technology they have, they're using like a 1984 credit card swiper. Yeah, to like write people's sentencing down on their little plate there. I thought that was pretty cool. So I was like, that reminds me of the old days.
Yeah, their mix of technologies really. I love how they're able to take something so like low tech, right? Like all it is a sliding roller. You actually had to stick stuff in there to make it work, and I think they're actually using it to like engrave it as it goes over it, which means like it's new technology. So I love that mix. I love that that balance that they do with all that stuff.
Yeah, Star Wars is great with that. But I'm loving Andor. It's a killer show, like you said, Ross. It's that political thriller you're looking for. It's got just enough Star Wars in it to make me love it for Star Wars, but it's not enough Star Wars to pull me out of it. Maybe if I didn't like Star Wars, I would still really enjoy the show. So
I keep on hearing enough good things about it where I'm probably going to give it a chance.
Yeah,
Cody, I think you dig it. I think you would dig it.
Yeah, and like I'm hearing a lot of what Greg said too. Like it's a lot more of a. I mean, it's Star Wars in name, but it also has like a different kind of vibe to it. So, yeah,
there's no lightsabers, there's no force.
Yeah.
It's
So
like
they dropped
basically a political
Palpatine's
show.
name though.
That's fine. See, like Obi-Wan, like to me, that's not really for me. And I'm not like trashing it either, but like this is the type of show that I think I could really, really enjoy. So yeah, I'm probably gonna check it out.
Yeah, you don't need a whole lot of any sort of backstory. I think that at most you just, if you don't know the time frame that you're jumping into, like how you got there, is probably the biggest problem. And what kind of you can parse out pretty simple, like what kind of world that they're living in, and like how it kind of de-evolves, and then I'm assuming is going to continue to de-evolve, just because it's like the growth of the rebellion. It's the beginning of seeing so many different. There's so many factions that are going on that have rebellious actions, and so it's weird because you don't have anyone like united under a banner, and so it's in that aspect. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, where there's so many different houses, but none of them can unite to actually get anything done.
Right.
So now you're going to kind of see that, I think, and I'm interested. And a lot of people, this is going to come into play later when we talk about a movie, but a lot of people are sleeping on this show, and I think mainly for a reason that we kind of reached a point of fatigue where there's so many shows out now week to week that I think a lot of people are like, I'm going to watch it when it's done, because I'm not about week to week life for all of the stuff that's happening. Rings of Power, House of Dragon, Andor, She-Hulk for those who liked it, and I mean, what else have we been talking about? I mean, we talk about Lower Decks, but I mean, shoot, like anything else that you're into and you want to watch, it's all week to week.
Yeah, it definitely changes the game up. But once again, it gives us stuff to talk about for weeks.
It does for us. Yeah.
Imagine if it was binged, and then that's the goal they're going for. If it was something you could binge, you'd talk about it for a couple of weeks, and then it'd be over until the next year when it came out again. So it's much better for the companies, I believe.
I watched 2 episodes this morning, like early this morning, of The Peripheral, that new show on Amazon. And I could have kept watching it, but I had other plans today. And so, same thing, they dropped all 8 episodes of it.
Mm-hmm. So you're probably going to watch it. And honestly, it's going to be like Umbrella Academy. Watch it, love it, forget about it until the next year and it comes out again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, do y'all have anything else about Andor you want to say? Do you want to go ahead and get into some...
it was a cool Star Destroyer scene. That's all I got. Watching that Star Destroyer come in was pretty cool.
Yeah. I think it's one of the coolest ships. Like all the Imperial ships are awesome for me. I don't know why. I love the Imperial ships, but... All right, well, let's do it. Let's hop in the House of the Dragon. Okay, so this is part of the reason why it's been so hard for me to intake stuff this week is because I have actually started reading Fire and Blood, and it is a fantastic book. I'm listening to it, and man, I'm gonna tell you, like I was saying before, it's like reading Genesis. Like the first little bit or first like half of every chapter is like so and so begot so and so begot so and so. It gives you the timeline of who's who and this and that, and like it was very difficult to understand because the book starts out at like 2 AC, and AC is like after conquest. It's like after Aegon's first conquest. So it starts out with the conquest of Aegon, and then it gives you the years as it's going down. And the show starts out at like 103 AC or something like that, and the show ends at like 135 AC, something like that. I can't remember, 29, somewhere in that vicinity. So I'm almost to that point. Like right now, I'm at like 49 AC. It's right where Maegor, the terrible or whatever, that guy's a horrible guy.
Cruel,
the cruel. It's where he's died, and now his son Jaehaerys has taken over. And Jaehaerys is actually what's his name's father, the king in House of the Dragon. Viserys. Yeah, that's his father. So I'm getting to the point.
Actually, no. That's his grandfather.
That's his grandfather? Okay, so I'm almost there. I'm getting there.
Yeah. So Jaehaerys had 2 children. His oldest son had Rhaenys, who had the big moment in this past episode, right? And then the younger son had both Viserys and Daemon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm getting to that point, and it's really cool because like even like what I've just finished was the part they call like the Faith Uprising. And listening to that part and listening to how like everything that Aegon the Conqueror did, like he showed respect for religion, but he really gave 0 Fs. Like they didn't like the Targaryen house doing this inbreeding and the marriages and stuff they do is not blessed by the religious people and it's looked down upon very, very badly, but they just don't care, you know? And for some reason, as long as he doesn't take force against them, they just continue to bless the things that he's doing, even though in secrecy they're really like plotting against him or waiting for their moment to step back into power. And that right there, reading this and seeing that makes the whole star on the chest of Alicent and everything they've changed mean so much more in this show. So like reading this book is making the show open up so much more for me. Like, oh, I see this. And it's so cool too in the book because there are those moments, like you said, Cody, where it's told from the point of view of Maesters, and you see in the show how many liberties they can take because there are so many things that are like, it may never be known what actually happened, but this is what is thought to be happened. Or it could have been this, or it could have been this, but we'll never know. And I'm like, oh, that's so awesome because they can do whatever they want to with that.
Yeah, you can fill in the gaps how you want.
Yeah. But I'm loving it, man. It's some of these chapters are like one chapter, I think chapter 13 or 14 is like 2 hours and 10 minutes long for a chapter. Like some of these chapters are long, and of course it's audiobook. I don't know how long that would be reading, but like the first chapter for me was like 38 minutes, and then my friend's actually reading it, and he said it was 26 pages. So I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to get in my mind like how far into the book that is as far as how, but I don't know why a couple of chapters are almost 2 hours. Most of them are between 45 minutes to an hour each chapter. So 26-hour read though, or listen.
Since you're reading the book, 2 things. If you notice how Maegor died, like he died on the Iron Throne.
They don't know though. The throne killed him, is what everybody says, but they don't know. Yeah,
they don't know. But there is like a large rumor that the Iron Throne spurned him.
Yeah,
you know, and that's a big thing. The Iron Throne, and you've already kind of seen that in the show a little bit with Viserys. But the Iron Throne's not a comfortable chair, and it's not meant to be. But also, you mentioned the Faith of the Seven, and how they're totally not cool with the incest and the multiple wives. Like they're not into that shit at all. And the next chapter that you're about to get into with Jaehaerys, you're gonna see how the Targaryens choose to rectify that.
Okay.
And how they go about doing it. But yeah, it's I love that you're reading it, man, because it does open up so many, you know, different things that you didn't know about before. And also it just shows you that they're going to do another book, and they're probably going to be able to do future shows of House of the Dragon based on later Targaryen kings and stuff like that. So
Mhm. Oh yeah.
yeah, man, I'm happy you're reading it.
Yeah, there's a
But
whole lot. Well, it's cool too because like you look at the conqueror of this family, like from Aegon the Conqueror, like it's his main thing was peace. And then
Right.
like when what's his name? The Cruel comes in, Maegor comes in, it's all
Maegor.
about bloodthirst and war and
Yeah.
destruction. And then what it looks like going into this, it looks like Jaehaerys, who comes into this, I think at 14.
Yeah.
I think it was when he becomes king. And he only does it because what's his name dies, on the throne. He gets to become king. It looks like he's trying to bring peace back to the realm, because in between this, there are uprisings and they're trying to break up what at least 6 of the 7
Yeah.
kingdoms that
Yeah.
what's his name, Aegon conquered, and they had never even mentioned that Dorne or Dawn, whatever it is, that he never actually
Dorne.
conquers this one.
Yeah. And
So
so I won't give away too much, but it's in the next book to come. They do a whole conquest into Dorne, and it's basically like the Westerosi version of Vietnam. It's like fucked from the start, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But yeah, that Dorne is fascinating. The whole thing is incredible. And Jaehaerys, he starts at 14, and then that's him in the show as the old man that you see in episode 1. So
Okay.
he was the most longest tenured, peaceful, transformative Targaryen king to ever live.
Yeah, I
Like
think I said he
everyone's,
died at 65 or something like
yeah,
that.
like everyone's compared against Jaehaerys.
Okay.
But, yeah, man.
And one more thing about the book, and then we'll get on the show. Sorry, I know I'm boring everybody with this book, but it's just amazing this read. Is they bring up to what is the okay? There's the castle that is sent to that has the curse that everybody
Harrenhal.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's the story of that and how the curse starts, and then you see this
It's
throughout the story of
wild,
people
huh?
talking about, oh well, this place must be cursed. I'm like, oh, that's so awesome to hear that. Like
Yeah,
that's a whole
it goes
chapter in the
back
book.
a long way.
It's pretty cool. And I was like, just
Yeah.
knowing that, like now. And I think, like I said, I even messaged you whenever I first started reading. I was like, dude, I got to get a timeline for this. And I did. I got a visual timeline.
Yeah.
And it helps out a ton having a family tree, because there's a lot of, they have like 6 names they use in the family for everybody. Like 3 female and 3 male names. And that's what they use for everybody. And it's like, oh, it's so difficult to understand.
Billy Bob, Joe Bob, all these others.
Yeah. But
Well, like, you know how like in real history there was like Edward the 1st.
Mhm.
yeah.
You know, like they did reuse a lot of names, so George kind of did the same thing with that. I will be excited for when you finally do start the actual Game of Thrones books,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I think especially now that you're loving Fire and Blood, dude, you're gonna fall head over heels in love once you finally start reading the main books.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm going to do that in line with the show too, because I'm going to watch the show while I'm reading the books. So the books is straight up what the show's about, right? Except for the part they didn't have written.
Yeah, so up until season
6, I think.
about 4,
No,
but
7.
kind of 1 through 4 were awesome. 5 was still good, but that's when you started to see the cracks form. And there's 5 books out right now,
Okay.
so 1 book per season, pretty much.
Okay. I'm definitely interested.
I'm
Well,
just-
good.
I'm happy you find the books enjoyable. I mean, like Sarah had jumped on this bandwagon hardcore like however many weeks ago. It was just
Yeah.
Sunday nights are now for the House of the Dragon. And so like it's great because like I said, I remember the first time around with Game of Thrones and like how much fun it was constantly just watching that show. So
Yeah,
I'm
man.
glad we got more.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's hop into it. I've been blabbering on about me reading the book and connections and being so excited about that. Let's talk about this week's episode. I know, Cody, you said
The king is dead. Boom.
Yes. There you go. Cody, you
Yeah.
said classically episode 9 is the one where shit hits the fan. And yeah, I'd say shit hit the fan in this world.
Yeah.
Like, it's gone pretty crazy. Where are we at?
Yeah. So you find out a bunch of interesting things here. You learn that even outside of Alicent, so if Alicent had never heard Viserys say that on his deathbed, everyone around her was plotting to have Aegon made the king.
Mhm.
And it's just like, how long were you guys plan? Like, it dawns on you, like, damn, this was going to happen if I did or didn't want it to. And you see the lines drawn, and now you're even seeing the lines drawn between family members too. because you notice there was that whole race to find Aegon. Otto, he had the Eric and Eric, the two Kingsguard twins, go and find him. But then Alicent goes to her boy toy, Kristen Cole, and her son Aemon, and is like, go find your dumbass brother and bring him here.
You're now buddy cops.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I mean, you really see the lines forming. Man, so many big moments. I don't even know what
Well, the thing with Alicent was it's one of those situations where she's got what she's wanted, but it's like not the way she wanted to get it, right?
Right.
So like ultimately this was her goal, but she didn't want it to be this way. She wanted it to be a naturally happen. And this is the episode where they bring all the lords to the house, right? And they're basically telling them, you will bend knee to Aemon, but Aegon, or you're not leaving. And he's like, well, I have to confer with my house with this. And he's like, no, you're making the decision before you leave. So that was pretty crazy. Yeah.
I think that with Alicent, you're seeing she's kind of been untouchable with Viserys. When you're the queen, you're kind of like untouchable, right? And so what I think that you're actually getting now is her realizing that she's not untouchable, and all these other men have been making these decisions to make sure that the woman doesn't get on the throne, because that's just not the natural way of things in this universe. And for a queen to rule, just no one wanted it. And so here's all the other guys on the council just like, no, we're going to make this happen. And what's really funny is that you see, I got the hint that Alicent felt that powerless moment to where she realized that all this was happening, like you said, without her knowledge. And so she kind of realized that, like, now that Viserys is dead, who is she?
Right.
So it was very stunning for her.
That was her power piece, was him, to be really honest with you. And now she's lost all that power. And they have this planned out so much that they have no problem just killing whoever they have to that goes against them. Because even old boy who stood up and said that, though, I've served with Viserys for so many years, he would not have said this, or he never mentioned this to me. And I thought it was kind of weird, man. Dude just slams his face down onto that marble. Bam. Just bam, slammed his face down. Was it Kristen Cole who did that? Just slammed his face down. And I was like, wow, okay.
And Mr. Orwell goes to pick up his body, and he's like, no one leaves until we're done here. It's like, let the dead body lie.
It's very Pope-esque. Like, you're locked in a room. No one's going to leave.
What did you guys think about the conversation between Rhaenys and Alicent, too? Because there comes that point where Rhaenys knows that she's locked in the tower. They're not letting her out because she just betrothed, her granddaughters to Rhaenyra's sons. So they're obviously aligned with one another. And they just lock her in her room, and then Alicent comes to talk to her, and she ends up telling Alicent, it's like, you're not vying for power. You're vying for say-so of the windows of your prison cell. It's like, in the end, you're setting yourself up to be in another scenario where you're going to continue to bow down to the men around you. Whether it be Otto, Alaris, which is a whole nother thing that happens in this episode that's creepy as hell. And there's nothing that Rhaenys said that was wrong. She's always having to make amends and concessions on behalf of the men in her life. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Rhaenyra actually represents bucking that trend.
Oh yeah.
There's two important quotes that I think were grabbed from this episode for me, and one of them was, there is no power but what people allow you to take. And that quote was basically the essential of, like, you have to be able to go for it, but at the same time, like, I think that was the whole point of making sure that Aegon was going to be put on the throne and, like, no one questioned it. But the other one was, reluctance to murder is not a weakness. And I thought that was very much, I believe that was Allison who said that. And it was very much like, just because I'm not
Yeah.
trying to murder people, there's a reason for that. And that reason does not show weakness. That reason shows that, like I'm here to make this decision. And so when she went to try to go talk to Rainey's, it was very much her trying to get that public opinion without force. And
Yeah.
it was very important that she did that because, she's looking for legitimacy. And I think now she realizes that she's not going to get legitimacy without help, and not like by taking it by force so much as it is, asking for it, like trying to get people to come to her cause.
Yeah.
Did you all find it creepy when Allison's talking to her father and she says that to Otto? She's like, having compassion is not weakness, not wanting to be a murderer. And then the first thing that Otto does is says, "You remind me of your mother."
Mm-hmm.
And remember he put his mother's dress on Allison to go and send her to talk to Viserys. Like, it's very much doing the patriarchal type thing of that, that male dominance, but also showing her, how she was used as a woman to get where she is. And even though it's her father, it was still this weird kind of sexualization of her and kind of demeaning her role as a thinker and someone that's actually worried about the future of her house and her family.
Mm-hmm. Who was the guard that let Renee out of her prison? Was it just a throwaway character? Because he comes in and he's like, "I'm not going to stand for this injustice."
That was
and
one
he,
of those brothers.
That was the Cargill twins. So
Yep.
okay, you know how there's two twin brothers of the King's Guard, and the whole time they're looking for Aegon, they're arguing with one another. Like, dude, look at this guy. We're going to a child fighting ring, and this is
talk about that.
Yeah, dude, this is gonna be the dude that we call our king, and then the other one's like, dude, we swore an oath. This is what we're meant to do, and you see that war between the family members right there. But if you notice, once they finally find Aegon and Kristen Cole and Aemon show up, when one of the brothers is sword fighting with Kristen Cole, the other one is kind of watching, and he kind of ducks off into the background. And that's the guard that went up to free Rhaenys.
Okay, and I think it even mentions, he's like, "Where is your brother?" Like, once somebody asked him that, right?
Yeah,
while they're
yeah.
fighting. Okay, so yeah, that makes sense now. I didn't think about that before, but yeah, okay,
Yeah.
And then let's talk about, Ross. You want to talk about that child fighting ring? So they talked about they filed the nails and teeth of these kids to make them more formidable. Like, wow.
And they pit
Wow,
them
that's
together.
nuts.
I mean, yeah, like not only did they like deform the shit out of them, but they pit them straight up against each other. I mean, like imagine your life as a kid. You are, to live or to die. And not only that, but I mean, there's so many bastards of Aegon in there.
Yeah.
He's just out there, wanking over the city like he was in that one episode. And I mean, like he's just creating fighters. You're literally playing in your own universe.
Yeah.
You are making these things happen, and not only that, you live the best life, and you're making the worst things happen. I mean, God, like I wish they would have, because I don't think they went into great detail. But I mean, like you said, like the filing of the teeth and the nails and everything. I mean, like show me just like 2 seconds of that. Put that fear into my head, and like let me have nightmares about that, because holy shit.
That's one of those things I don't want to see, but I want to just see one time just to see it, like you said, so that way I have the fear of it in my head, but I would never want to actually see it. It's like, it's weird, Okay, so is it Rhaena's dragon at the end?
Yeah,
Holy crap.
Dragon.
Rhaenys beautiful dragon. Like, I was like, wow, that's a really, really nice dragon. So she comes in at the coronation of Aegon, right?
Yeah, so at that time when she's escaping, all of the guards are moving them toward the dragon pit, which is where Aegon's about to be coronated, because they want this to be as legitimate as possible.
Yeah, they need as many people viewing it.
Yeah, they need many people viewing it. They need to know, hey, Aegon is your king. He wears the crown of Aegon the Conqueror. He wields the sword Blackfire. His name is Aegon. Like, they have all these superficial things that they're pushing on him to try and prove his legitimacy. And earlier in the episode, you see he wants no part of it. He tells his brother, "Hey, I'm going, dude. I'll hop a boat. I'll be across the sea. I'll be doing my shit." A lot like what Kristen Cole said to Rhaenyra when he wanted to elope with her. But yeah, it didn't end up going too well.
No, but he actually he it's weird to see his transition from the beginning of that episode to what he ends up being at the end, because he really embraces it at the end. Like he realizes this is what, of course, when you got a crowd of people cheering for you, you've been given a crown and a sword at that point in time, adrenaline's got to be pumping, I imagine.
Yeah. Sarah, what were your thoughts on just this episode, or just what you want to talk about?
Well, I thought it was
You're
kind
too
of cool.
quiet.
I just love listening to you, Cody, because you just love this.
No, but I talk about it too much. I want to hear y'all.
No,
talk
but
about
seriously, it's this was an interesting. Like I said, what everybody was kind of pitted against each other, because not only do you have Kristen Cole in the chamber, basically slam the guy's face down. You had what is that, like the captain of the King's Guard?
Yeah, the Lord Commander.
Right, because basically, Otto told him, he's like, "You didn't go kill Rhaenyra." He's like, "The hell I will."
Yeah.
I'm not about to do that. He's like, "I'll snatch the cloak off right now and walk away."
Yeah.
So you have that going on, like a clashing of ideologies, or who, I guess who's backing whom and that kind of thing. And then of course when you have them looking for Aegon, which I thought it was just really weird that Aegon is always gone. I'm like, how did? Yeah, because it's already been proven that he is just. He's not for shit, period. Just not for shit. That should have been something that had just, that egg should not have been fertilized. So they're looking for them. And then to see, everybody pitted against each other on that, fighting over that. And the kids, you guys, if y'all want to see some crazy looking kids wanting to, wild animals, no, you guys can have that. I'm good with that. I've got.
I thought you were going to say, "Come to my house."
That was going to be my next point. But but I don't know, the way my kids with the teeth coming, they're losing their baby teeth and the adult teeth are coming in, and they're like little pointy things too. So they look, they look like wild animals.
Right.
But then also, with Rhaenys, and when she realized she was locked up in her room, she's like, "Oh, the hell," because she's always been in the middle anyways. Because she already had that discussion with Rhaenyra about, hey, this is the way it is. They're never going to accept you. It is what it is, because I got passed over, blah blah blah. And then to have almost kind of like the same conversation with Alicent, except Alicent was just she's on a different level than Rhaenyra's.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it was almost like a similar conversation. Saying you can do what you want, but you're still a woman. It is what it is. I mean, men are still going to pull the strings. Come, no matter whatever may come. But when Rhaenys was actually, broke her out of her prison, so to speak, she wanted to go down to the dragon pit. I was just like, why? It didn't even dawn on me. I was like, oh hell, she's got a freaking dragon down there. I mean, why? Because when she was herded back into the dragon pit, she was just, you could see her light up. She's like, oh, I'm where I want to be. Of course, there's some bullshit going on here, but because then you saw she kind of
how did I get stuck in the car park?
Yeah,
I might be car's parked here.
She kind of snuck her way to the side, and next thing you know, she's like right down the door, and I was like, oh, something crazy is about to happen.
Yeah,
and of course, something crazy did happen. So to have her dragon just bust up through the floor, but she's always been she's an interesting character to me. Like I said, I don't know anything about the book version, but to me, I feel like she does wield some power, but it's not blatant. It's like she's like the voice of reason, because I know I've seen a lot of people, say, oh, well, she could have just taken them all out with her dragon, but you could tell she's like, look, I know shit's about to go down. Y'all have created a situation where it's going to get ugly real quick, real fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so for her dragon, I would not want to be on the other side of a dragon's breath. whether he
Oh,
was
yeah.
high or not. Because I'm like, you're just like, oh my word. But just her up there, and her dragon do what it did, and the fact that she had somewhat of control over that dragon to where she's like, I could take y'all out right now, but I'm not. I just want y'all to be aware. And then she just leaves because they know 100% she's going to Rhaenyra,
Mhm.
Rhaenyra, 100%. So at that point in time, and even with Aegon, when he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm the king," I'm like, "No, dude, I don't know. This is just." You could see shit going off the rails right then and there,
Mhm.
especially with how fast that they were to, as soon as Viserys literally took his last breath, they're like, "Oh, we got to do this right now."
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Shows the holes in their plan.
Right.
well, and even the scene with Aegon in the wagon, where he was like, Aegon is still a child.
Mhm.
He's
Yeah.
still a child. I mean, even though he's the older brother, Aemon's the only one that really took on the seriousness of his role. He took being a prince serious.
Mhm.
And Aegon's just like, I'm just gonna do whatever. He's like, I'm like, dude, he's almost like a kid that's like, why was I even born? What purpose do I serve?
You
So
notice how he asked his mom, he's like, "Do you love me?" And then
I,
she calls him an imbecile.
I know.
It's like, "Oh, gee, tell me you love me without telling me you love me, mom."
Right.
But it was interesting when she gave him the dagger though, and he was I
Yeah.
guess then I guess he thought, oh, well, maybe he really did mean for me to be. I'm like, dude, that's just a symbol. I mean, that's not really. If he handed it to you, gave it to you, yes, I would say I would believe that. But just because somebody literally stole it off a corpse and just handed it to you, that don't mean shit.
Mhm.
So the way they found Aegon in the book is
Oh,
way
God.
worse than how they found him in the show. Like
Sure.
to the point where it's like, oh yeah, of course they're not gonna put that in the show. Like it's that bad, dude.
Was he in the
Okay.
closet with the noose around his neck? Like, what were we talking here? Did he go
Uh,
Carradine?
no, they find him with someone who's very underage.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad they don't go there in the show. Then let's put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad they have limits in this whole universe.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
thank
right.
God.
I mean, there's some crazy stuff in the books that, like, I imagine that if I saw in the show, I'd be weird. Like, we talked about Magor the Cruel. Like, he actually murders one of his wives and like tortures her for, I think they said, like 4 days, and was
Yeah.
there present for the entire time she was being tortured. And they try to keep her alive as long as possible while they tortured her. Then after they killed her, they separated her body parts and they put a piece of her body on a spigot on each of the 7 gates of the kingdom. And I'm like, holy shit, until it rotted. And I'm like, wow, that is some
Yeah.
terrible shit right
He
there.
really earned that name, Magor the Cruel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he earned it. And you know, to that point, earlier when you see Daemon and Rhaenyra sneaking around all the secret passages,
Mhm.
well, Magor had those passages built
Mhm.
and then invited all the builders to a feast and had them all fucking killed
Yep.
at the feast so that he would be the only one who knew about his secret passageways that he
Mhm.
had built. He was a gnarly dude. Yeah, but Aegon, this episode, he shows you his reluctance. He does not want to be the king. He wants no part of this. And you do start to see him change a little once he holds up the Blackfire sword and he has a crown on his head, and everyone's like cheering at him. It's like, oh, whoa, this is actually kind of nice. And yeah, the when it we have to talk about this. What did you guys make of Laris
Oh, I knew you were
and
going to go
his
there.
here we go, man,
Yep.
and his foot fetish?
Foot fetish is what we'll call it. Yeah.
I
was
have
in-
my take, but I want to hear y'all's first.
Did she know what was going on? She had her back turned, but I was like, I couldn't tell. I was like, does she know what's happening
Oh,
here?
dude,
is-
yes,
Yeah?
100%.
Okay. That makes it
That
even.
wasn't
Because I
their
don't think
first
this was
time.
the first time.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah. That's pretty insane.
There's a picture that floats around that I've always found funny, and it was mainly because I'm not into feet, right? And so it's like there's a whole entire cake, and there's a piece out of that cake, And then it's like, it's like the internet fetish world. And then there's like, someone says like, that's like foot fetish, and they just pick up the whole entire cake and like, I'm gonna take the rest of this. Y'all can have that. Because I don't get it. I've never gotten it. Like I don't. And you're right. Don't judge. I'm with you. Like people are into their own things, especially, like I was gonna say when you guys were talking about it. If you've ever seen Martin smirk, like when you see him with his hat and everything else, it's creepy because he makes little kids fight. He, ends up with a king and, some way underage girl. His books are full of incest and everything else. I mean, when you see the guy smirk, you're like a different kind of devil. Like, I'm glad that what you wrote sold for millions and millions of dollars, and like you're in the, like just feasting on the world right now, living your best life.
Yeah.
But you're a little twisted, my man. And so like when I was thinking that when he brought this part into it, and I'm like, that poor queen, I mean, she knows what the issue is, like what the kink is, and she's just playing it to a T.
But why? Why does she allow it? Is the question. Like what is his power over her?
So it's a few things. So you notice one of the conversations that's taking place is he says, "Hey, your father has a spy ring that's going on." And by the way, which is 100% true, because if you notice, like when Damon and Rhaenyra were caught getting it on in the brothel, it was one of Mysaria's kids who went and informed Otto Hightower. So Otto Hightower has been using Mysaria as like a spy ring, and her children that she employs. And by the way, that's why you see Otto Hightower go to her later in the episode when she's looking for Aegon, because like, hey, where's my son? And she knew that, and Otto knew that she could have had Aegon killed, so she does have a degree of power. But look at what Larys has done for her, seemingly with no trouble at all. Kills his own father and brother like it was nothing. And by the way, that's the catalyst that got Otto to be the hand of the king. And it moved all the succession things along. Now it put him in a position of power. But to me, this is a classic example of exercising power over her. And it goes back to what Rhaenys was saying, how at the end of the day, Alicent, she's still beholden to the men in her life. Not only does he have a foot fetish, but it's a power play over her. It's like, oh, you want this? Oh, you want me to do this? Oh, I need to do this? Okay, well, let me see them feet. Let me see, dude. That's 100% it. And you notice that she doesn't want to be doing it. And that's why this is a power play more than anything. Because, by the way, he's so powerful, he can stare at any type of girl's foot. Like, it's literally not a problem for him. But the fact that it's the queen, and she's visibly disgusted by it. Like at the very end of the episode, when he's fucking jerking off, she puts her feet up and turns and doesn't even look at him.
Okay.
Because he knows that it makes her uncomfortable, and she gets off on that.
And she looks like a woman who's woken up with a few wet socks in her lifetime.
Oh, dude.
I'm sorry, but she had that look of disgust on her face, and I'm just like, oh, you poor woman.
Well, and like I said, it also shows, even though she is a queen, she does have no power at all. I mean, because I think I've seen some comparisons to, I guess, Cersei from Game of Thrones. She wouldn't have put up with that shit. She'd have probably took that dude out right then. She'd get her information, but she wouldn't have put up with that shit. So it's like, even though you're the queen, it's like you're still subject to everybody else.
It is very interesting to think what Cersei would do in that situation, because she's also very power hungry and very cutthroat herself, But I don't know. That's a great question, Sarah. To me, it's a total power move. By the way, a few episodes ago, when he was cutting out the dude's tongues, you notice how excited he was? Like, homeboy was ready for it. Like, he likes to be in positions of power, and he likes to exploit people that have no power, or
Mhm.
seemingly have no power in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of his character. He's a real dirtbag.
Well,
Like
he's a
people,
second son too because he wouldn't come. He wouldn't have any power. Period. If his brother
yeah,
was still alive. So now
yeah.
he's like the lord all of, all because he, got rid of his, basically his family. So he's
Mhm.
like, yeah, okay,
And
I'm
even,
top dog now.
even as far as second son to go, dude, the dude's a dirtbag. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like I don't know how much you guys remember Varys and Littlefinger from the original Game of Thrones show, but to me, he's decidedly more evil than even Littlefinger was.
Oh God.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like, dude, like Littlefinger was fucked up, but he was calculating and he did love women. This dude just seems like a total bastard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now, him killing his brother and his father, that was the Harren Hall thing, right? That
Mhm.
was them
Yeah,
burning? Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So that's cool. Honestly.
So,
Because Laris is just straight creepy. Now it's like whenever you see it, well, he creeped me out from the very beginning. Like the very first time you saw him, well,
Mm-hmm.
what was it? He actually sat with the ladies. He just kind of like waddled his little stuff
yeah.
in there and just kind of just sat there like, hi, what's going on? And I said, from right there, I said, this dude, something's not right with this guy.
Mm.
And remember when he was like, "Hey, I'll totally take that eyeball out of Rhaenyra's
Yeah.
head if
Yeah.
you want to." And it's like, dude, he has no problem doing crazy shit. Oh, by the way, if you notice, by Saria's house, the big white house, he had one of his dudes burn that
hmm
place on fire. Fire seems to be his chosen form of violence. Getting people to
Works pretty
burn
well.
shit. Yeah. Um.
Cover all the
uh,
evidence.
So we didn't see any Rhaenyra or Daemon this episode, and I know Cody, you told me that you thought this was going to be the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons, which is like right where I'm getting, the next few chapters in the books that I'm getting to,
Mhm.
so which is about the show, I guess. Is that you think where we're headed next episode in the finale? I think we got the very very beginning of it, and now we're gonna hop into that part or the beginning of the Dance of
Yeah,
the
so
Dragons.
there's there, and they hint at it in the teaser. There's
Mhm.
a very big moment coming up in this next episode.
Stay off
That's
On the
Twitter.
bridge? Is it on the bridge?
It's not on a bridge,
Stay off
um,
Twitter.
but it's one of the defining moments of the Dance with Dragon. It's where the dance begins in earnest, and
Dance off.
and it happens next episode. This episode was definitely the start of it, yeah.
Mhm.
Especially with them crowning Aegon. Um, this is my last little note for the show. My headset's dying, so I don't have too much longer anyway. But my when it came to Rhaenys not burning them alive, you know how Rossi was saying earlier, just because you're not willing to murder someone doesn't make that a weakness.
Mhm.
And I think it's the same thing with Rhaenys. She was the queen who never was, and she was kind of showing you what kind of ruler she would be, like murdering a bunch of unarmed people. Which, by the way, she did murder a bunch of people. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Exactly.
after the dragon bust out from beneath, dude, like there were definitely civilians that got really fucked up. And by the way, I even think that's intentional, because you're gonna see by the end of this the toll that warring dragon factions has on normal everyday people,
Mm.
and it's not good,
A
dude.
lot of collateral, I'm sure.
Oh man,
I bet so.
I can't wait for y'all to see the rest of where this shit goes, man. It's fucking bananas. But yeah, what did you make about her decision to not just burn them alive right there?
I can't say I wouldn't have. To be truly honest with you, I
Yeah,
can't say
right.
I wouldn't have. And honestly, I didn't know the story going forward. I thought that may have been what she may have done, but she just gave him the bad breath instead. Yeah, I never thought about it like you just said. Maybe that's her showing how her rule, or the other side of not killing and still showing power. But I didn't really think much of it. To be honest with you, all I thought was it would have definitely been what I did. I would have pulled that trigger.
Yeah.
So
Okay, yeah.
She's a mom. Not only is she a mom, she's a mom that lost her daughter to
Yeah.
literally being, fired down upon by her own dragon. So, when you're a mom and you see Alicent there trying to protect her kids, and you also don't know, I think that she saw a weakness in the armor with Alicent, and maybe not that she was being forced to do what she was doing, but it didn't seem like it was all like 100% her idea. And so, as much as it probably was a message to all of them, like your time's going to come, and like if this is the fight that you want to have, and this is the type of people you want to be, then like we're going to come back and treat you as such.
Yeah.
But I think in the immediate thing, like it was kind of like the whole mom thing,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I wanted to bring up too that the funny thing, you were talking about the dragon killing the rider a few episodes back. It was Damon's wife, and I noticed in the book they make it a point of like making sure whenever somebody important dies, the dragons that were there that burned them. Like it's a big deal. Like the dragons that were there, because they don't want to bury the bodies; they want them to be burned, and they just make it a point in the book to let you know this dragon and this dragon and this dragon provided the fire along with help from this dragon and this dragon. I'm like, oh, okay, so it's like the more dragons, and because different dragons have different type of fire, breath. So, like, depending on who the person was and what they did, had different dragons providing the fire for them to burn. I was like, oh, it's kind of crazy how they pin in on that, and they want you to know this is kind of an important thing,
Yeah,
like that.
that's one thing that they don't do in the show, which I get it. Maybe it's just a little bit too much in the CGI budget, but every dragon, it breathes the same fire as the color of its scales, which is awesome. Like you get green fire for Vagar and all these really different cool ones.
Yeah, and black fire is the worst, right?
But
like that's the hottest.
Well, it's not necessarily that one color is hotter than the other. It's just that Balerion was the biggest, baddest mofo to ever live, and he's the one that melted Harrenhal. He's the one that melted the Green Hands and the Lannisters on the Field of Fire. He's just a legendary dragon, and he was a big black dragon, so he had this black fire. And by the way, that's why the sword is named Blackfire.
Okay.
The Targaryen sword that Aegon wielded, the original Conqueror, but now the one in the show too. The sword that you see young punk Aegon holding up, that's the ancestral sword of Aegon the Conqueror. And his sister wife
with the crown.
Yeah, with the crown. And his sister wife Visenya had the sword Dark Sister.
Yeah,
and that's
I was going to ask you where that one's at.
And no, that's Daemon's sword. When Daemon cuts that dude's head off, that's the same sword.
Okay.
I love that you say sister wife, and we're not talking about polygamy.
Yes.
Oh, what a mess.
But yeah, we got the finale coming up, man. I'm interested to see how this goes, and I'm more interested to see what they do, like what the next season, or if they do another snippet of this history, because you could go back before this and tell a really good story.
Oh yeah,
you go forward in front of this and tell a good story, because you still got a long time before the Game of Thrones beginning of Game of Thrones,
And people liked the younger actresses so much. I wouldn't doubt it if maybe they do some flashback scenes, and involve them in some way, shape, or form. That would be cool. The real bummer is I'm hearing that we're not going to get season 2 for another 2 years.
Oh
I can
wow.
believe it.
Not 2023, but 2024, man.
I believe it. I don't think they put enough stock into, thinking that they could revive something like this, because they didn't even announce the second season until the first season was underway, and so they didn't have.
It kind of makes sense, because Game of Thrones ended on such a bad note that you didn't know if fans were going to buy back into this world like they had, in the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones. It was different characters, different everything. So it was a gamble for them. But yeah, this show is, I believe when it's all said and done, this show could be bigger than Game of Thrones.
I only think that they messed up with the time jumps, and I think that they could have used those characters for a full season, if not multiple seasons, and then kept telling the story, because this show could go on for 18 seasons,
Yeah.
and just this one show. And you have the age and the characters to where, like, if you want to change actresses, it was such a shock in just watching the episodes where they did it, which is another point I was going to bring up about Eamon. It seemed like he was the only one who truly aged up. It seemed like the rest of them seemed a lot younger than Eamon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of probably, like a conscious choice that they made. But no, like I don't. You're right. I see why they're dipping their toe in the water, and they wanted to make sure that the water was still warm. But man, like,
Yeah.
I worry that you can't go. I worry that if you go backwards, it's not going to work out well. And I think that if you go, in between House of Dragon and Game of Thrones, I mean, that's probably like your best, bread and butter right there, because like it tells enough of a story where you're connected. Because even in Game of Thrones, where you had Cersei talking about, incest was not unusual. Like the Targaryens did it forever. And then like now you're like living in that era where like you said, to start off this episode, of the religious aspect of it, and like how they bucked up against it constantly. So there's so much that they can tell. I just don't, I personally don't want to see them stay in this exact tight circle. I'd much rather them, be outside of it.
Right.
Yeah. I did like Kevin White Talk Express's final comment, because it's funny, but it's also true. He's like, I thought, wow, she murdered the poor people in the room. They had nothing to do with, they had nothing to do with anything, but they won't kill the people plotting to kill the grandkids. And that's, I thought that was kind of funny, but it's kind of true. Like, he's right. If she would have taken them all out, it stops all the atrocities that are getting ready to happen, But I don't know. She did what she did, and if she did that, there wouldn't be a show. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it had to happen that way. By the way, also not something from the book. Spoiler alert, Greg. But that doesn't happen in the book. But everything else that you're about to read is definitely going to happen.
Okay. Like I said, I'm just coming into Harris, and it's funny because like I think what I've read up to this point is like the rise of the House of Targaryen.
Yes.
And then everything from House of the Dragon, what we're seeing now, up until I guess Game of Thrones, is kind of their fall.
Yeah.
Or so I think they've gone with the story of the fall as opposed to starting with the story of the rise. You can tell both, but you can definitely see like this is the point in this family's name where everything really started to fucking go awry.
Yeah.
Viserys is that point, or his death. So
Jaehaerys and Viserys was like the pinnacle of Targaryen power. They were never more powerful than they were under those two men, and this is the tragic downfall of Targaryens. Yeah, man. This next episode is going to be. It's going to be. So this episode was called the Green Council, and the next one's called the Black Queen. So this episode was from the perspective of the Greens. This next episode is going to be purely the perspective of the Blacks. So it ought to be pretty incredible, man.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, man. So we got to.
Let's hope all the feet still have shoes on them. All I'm gonna say.
Yeah, we got our foot fetish fix on this one. So.
But Greg, as you start to get through the Dance of the Dragon, so you got Jaehaerys to go, and there's a lot of Jaehaerys. Like there's like 3 or 4 chapters on Jaehaerys, if not more. Then there'll be Viserys, and then it'll be the Dance of the Dragons. As you're getting through the Dance of the Dragons, I want you to update me as you as you get to the juicy stuff, because I just want to get your opinion, and then how you think that'll play out in the show too. So
Okay, I definitely will.
that'll be fun.
Well, for anybody who's enjoying this show and you've not had a chance to read this book, I would recommend buying it and reading it, or just doing what I'm doing. Check out Audible, man. I love listening to audiobooks. If you got time to listen to podcasts, you could probably pop in an audiobook and have a good time with it. And man, it's just a different world for me, popping into an audiobook. And I especially love now that I'm coming into the part that I've already seen on screen. So now I get to see in my head, once again, what I think it is in my head and what I know they portrayed on screen.
Yeah.
And I get to fill in the gaps. And I love doing that. But it's a really good audiobook.
Yeah.
It's tough to get through some parts of it because, like I said, it's like reading Genesis. You know, you got to learn who begot who and who married who and this and that. And then once you establish that, it's like, okay, and this is what happened. It's like, okay, so now we can go. But it's really fun, and the show's fantastic. I will be watching Game of Thrones. I'm in this world, and you had mentioned that earlier about how this becoming more popular in Game of Thrones. A lot of people I talk to that are serious hardcore Game of Throners like this show better, have told me that they like House of the Dragon better than Game of Thrones. I was like, wow, okay.
It's also
I don't know
new.
if it's because it's more recent and because the way of Game of Thrones ended, like it's left that sour taste in your mouth. But I know a lot of people have told me that they like this better. So
You can see the beginning, middle, and end of Game of Thrones, and so like you have all of that to go off of. You don't know where this is going yet.
Right.
You know there hasn't been a moment to where people have questioned whether or not what they're watching is worth or valued to the way that they feel about watching it. And so that goes with any show, like I always say, watch it to the end, see what they do. And, like you never know what's going to pop off. And so we were taught with Game of Thrones that, maybe some practices aren't really good. Like, don't keep making it if there's no story to go off of. But at the same time too, I mean, you can't, if you treated 1 through 4, 1 through 5 of Game of Thrones as like a complete story, I mean, and they found a way to tie up the ends. I don't know anyone that could say that. Like, I don't. Like, I mean, that show was phenomenal.
okay.
It was.
Period.
Wow.
And it's one of the best stories. To me, it's the best fantasy story ever. It's my favorite fantasy story.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask me as a story, just a pure story, what's better, The Dance of the Dragons or A Song of Ice and Fire? I'd say A Song of Ice and Fire.
Really?
But from a TV show perspective, this show has everything in abundance, and that you had to wait for with Game of Thrones. Like there's right away there is incredible characters, political intrigue, sex, violence, and full-grown dragons. Like the dragons are a surprise in Game of Thrones that you're like, wow. Because again, this is like minor, very, very minor spoiler, but no one believes in dragons by the time of Game of Thrones.
Really?
They've been gone so long that it's like, apparently
Which is
there
only
was
like 200
dragons.
years,
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Right,
Yeah.
but like there was no iPhones, there was no pictures, like
Life expectancy was like 50.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. So like all the people that were around when the dragons were there, they've long since passed. So dragons being reintroduced into the world of Game of Thrones was a very big deal in that story. Whereas with this, they're here right from the jump, and just from a television perspective, it's the perfect kind of story to tell. So,
But Game of Thrones did the universe building and the world building for this
oh, absolutely,
visually. And so, House of Dragon gets to play off of that. So
100%. And the first 4 seasons of that show, to me, are the best television ever made. Like, I love
Pretty
it,
damn
dude.
close.
Like, it's so damn good, and you are really gonna love it. Sarah, I don't know how much of Game of Thrones you've watched, but whenever you two do jump back into the show, like I almost envy you, because like being able to experience it again and the characters and the stories. Dude, it's
feels like
phenomenal.
the first time.
Yeah.
I've gotten through season 1 at the first episode and half of the second.
Oh, so
And-
you barely watched it. Okay.
Yeah, but that second episode, there was some shit in there. I'm like, I don't know. I look at things a lot differently.
Y'all watch, you know what? I don't even want to hear anything. I want you guys to watch the first season, and then I want to know what you
Yes.
feel like after that.
Yes.
Because at the end of the first season, I feel like that was such a a journey that you went on in one season of television, and you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I just experienced, but I'm wet and I don't understand why the world is upside down, but
Yeah.
things are crazy.
The final moment of the first season and the final moment of the first book. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. It's so like the journey that you go on with Daenerys, dude, it's incredible.
Yeah, you
I
got me
can't wait
really
till y'all start to watch it.
Well, I'm definitely going to get there. I know I said I was going to start it after Rebels, and I started Rebels. So as
No,
soon as
you're
I finish
fine,
that,
dude.
Game of Thrones is on. Like those would be my catch-up shows. I always try to have one catch-up show.
No, I
Now I
hear
have
you,
two in
man.
the shoot. So
Yeah. Well, party people, I'm probably about to make my exit. I got some family over.
cool, man.
Yeah, man, I had to come and talk about House of the Dragon. I mean, hey, like I said, we got 2 more times, or now just one of doing this. So,
Oh
I
yeah.
had to
Well, I'm
come
sure
on
you'll be
and
back for
talk.
something else. There'll be
Yeah,
something
no
else, some kind of
doubt.
arcane or something else out
Arcane
there.
season
That's
2,
for
man.
badass we
sure.
gotta talk about. So,
I'll definitely be back for Arcane. And maybe if I catch up on Andor, I don't know how many episodes there are.
we're on episode 7 right now. So
How many
just
are there
happened. There's
now?
going to be 12.
12. Okay.
Yeah,
So
still
yeah,
5 more
maybe I
weeks,
might be able to catch up in time and be able to come and join y'all on maybe 7 or 8 or whatever.
Okay, cool. Definitely, man.
Yeah.
Well, Cody, where can they find you, buddy?
Yeah, find me at Cody Lack, CODYLAC. I'm always doing stuff on C3 Panthers podcast, and find my written comment for the Panthers on drafttech.com. Dude, if I didn't have to say Panthers for another year and a half, dude, that might be too soon. You know what I'm saying?
Chris McCaffrey saying the same thing right now.
Ha!
You know. So,
Yeah.
well, all right, buddy. It was great having you, and I will see you tomorrow. Or well, I know I'll probably talk to you tomorrow, but I'll be podcasting with you Sunday post game.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
all right, buddy.
Greg,
Bye,
Ross,
Katie.
Sarah, you have a good night.
Later,
You
man.
too, Cody.
All right. All the shows out of the way. We got the big one now. It's funny that we saved this one for last, but we kind of had to get all the other stuff out of the way. Finally got a movie, y'all. And we all got to go see it on opening night. And I'm not gonna lie, like I bought tickets for this theater I've never gone to, and it was advertised as like wall-to-wall screens and like the most relaxing chairs and blah blah. And I will say, it did have the most relaxing chair I've ever sat in my life. It really did. Like I was amazed. It was heated, everything. Like it was amazing. I could not believe when I reclined it all the way back. I was like, oh yeah, if this was a movie I wasn't interested in, I could definitely fall asleep. No problem at all. But the screen wasn't like impressive. It was just like a regular movie screen. Seats didn't move everything. So like I only paid like an extra $1 for this theater, but I'm actually probably gonna go back to this theater again if the seats are that comfortable because it was that much more comfortable than the other ones. Not that the other ones are uncomfortable, that like the Grand or anything, but I was pretty amazed by it. So right away, I was blown away impressed with where I was sitting. When I got there was somebody sitting in my seat, and my buddy I was with, I went to the bathroom and he went to go sit in our seats, and he was like, "Hey man, there's somebody in our seat," and like I was dead center of the screen, dead center of the theater, so that was like the seat that we wanted to pick. And like I walked up and I was gonna go say something to this guy, but then I looked in the theater and there's like 5 other people in the whole theater, and I was like, "How about we just?"
Oh
sit
fuck no!
I was like, how about we just sit 2 seats
I
over?
paid for that seat right
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I just sat beside him. I was like, there's no point in making a fuss about this. I was like, if this was full, if the place was full and like I was missing my seat because of this, I'd say something. I was like, but I'm just gonna sit 1 seat over and I'll be fine. So yeah,
We live
I know
in a time of assigned seating.
That's what
It's
he said
assigned.
too, and I was like, nah, I'm not worried. If it was full, I would, but it just seemed like a battle I didn't want to fight at that point in time, especially going into a movie that I really, really want to see. But I digress. I talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. Let's talk about this movie. We've shared thoughts a little bit about it. I think we're all kind of on the same level with this one. I had a friend that I went with, and he's got some thoughts that I'm going to share on it too. But I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed my viewing. I'm happy I went to see it, and I'm probably going to go see it again. Like I would pay to see this movie again. There's not a lot of movies I would pay twice for, but I would definitely pay to see this movie again. But let me start with y'all's thoughts. Sarah, get us going.
This was everything that I wanted. This is what I expected. This is what I wanted.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was throughout the entire film. I just probably sat there like, and just, I'd get these adrenaline rushes. It's just like, oh, what? Oh, okay. I mean, that's because you go in there and Black Adam, he is not a superhero. He's not a hero. He is not a hero. I mean, it's like that anti-hero type deal. So, I mean, to see, I guess, the level of violence, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I'm like, I want to see that. That's what I want to see. Um, I don't, it's, I enjoyed the story. I mean, because I knew I'm not walking into like, an Oscar type performance here. I mean, I realize it's The Rock. I've seen enough Rock movies to know I know what to expect. The level of humor. I mean, there were some genuinely really funny parts. I mean, it was just like some little zingers.
Mhm.
Now there were some in there that were like, okay, that haha, all right. Anyways, let's move on. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, it wasn't like super serious. Like it wasn't all funny. It was. I felt like it moved along. It was just a movie that I, at this point in time, I wanted to see. It was enjoyable. It's like I said,
Right.
it's what I wanted and what I got out of it. Like I said, it wasn't the best thing I've ever seen, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. It was just fun.
Yeah.
It was just a fun ass movie.
I agree. Fun's a great way to describe it. Yeah, and like with The Rock being in there, it added that little bit of fun into it. I think you nailed this character. Ross, what you think, man? Overall,
I think that the movie took way too long to come out.
Okay.
But I'm happy that it's out. We talk about was it 2014? I think he said that he kind of started on this venture.
yeah, he kind of talked himself into this role, didn't he?
Well, he was mentioned, and then he kind of worked with writers, and then he got to a point where I guess he was able to have more say in the movie. I guess kind of is what I want to say. I saw the overall theme. I thought they played real hard on The Rock. I understand where they were trying to get to, like I said, with the theme. I feel like, unfortunately, it's not a great comparison because we haven't seen one or the other yet, or we haven't seen the other one yet. But I feel like, Black Panther is going to kind of tell the same type of story in a certain way. And so I'm interested to see, because I felt like this kind of fell flat on like the whole, the community needing to come together. What was the name of the city?
Kadar or something like that, or
Quandok?
Quandar,
Quandok?
something like
Something like that. It
Yeah.
felt very like, I kept thinking Chirac like the whole entire time I was watching it, just because it felt like a mishmash of like city names. But I get where they were coming from with the whole city constantly being under siege. And what I mean by a siege is like, it seemed like it started off that way with cruel rulers, and then it turned into having issues with the mercenaries who were there. I liked the scenes that I saw from The Rock. I didn't think that his character was too stale. I thought that he did a pretty good job, like, acting aloof. Stupid is not the right word, but kind of acting like, he truly did just wake up after 5,000 years. But there wasn't like, this movie to me was action, and I didn't read any reviews or anything else, and I heard the word action thrown around like twice, but like I get that aspect of it because it was constantly going. I hated the fact that we did not get more Justice Society background right off the bat. That was one of my big things when it comes to the story that I missed, because I was all in for all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted that background.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and we'll start diving into this too, just different parts of this. So for my friend I went with, that was one thing he mentioned, was that he didn't like that they just dropped the Justice Society in there. And honestly, the way they did it was they did it very Suicide Squadish, like where this is the character, this is the character, this is the character. This is what I do, this is what I do, this is what I do. Bam, go. And like, he said, he's like, I kind of want to see more of that. I think that this is like a beta test to see if a Justice Society movie would work. And I think that if it's successful, which I feel like it's going to be, this movie, you'll probably get some of that in the future. But I do agree that it was just kind of the characters dropped in there and go. But that's kind of DC's thing, man. That's what DC does. They just it's not the same blueprint as Marvel does. It's just kind of drop the characters in, and enough about these characters to get through the movie. But I feel like they put them in there to make you want to learn more. You're going to go study up on this character. You're going to go learn about this character. If there's a movie coming out, you're going to go see this movie because you saw this character in this movie. Now you want to know more about him. And that's kind of the blueprint they go with. With this movie in particular, did anybody else feel like very Zack Snyder vibes? Like with the slow-mo, with the color palettes, and I was like, this movie feels more like Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman than anything else DC has put out. And it wasn't quite there because I asked my friend about that too, and he's like, "Yeah, but it felt kind of like Walmart Zack Snyder," and I was like, "Yeah, that's true because Zack Snyder would have fleshed the characters out a little more. I feel it probably would have been an hour longer, but but it just had this Zack Snyder kind of feel to it for me, you know." Like every time I saw a slow motion scene or I was just looking at stuff, I was like, it feels like I'm watching like you know, a part of the Watchmen. You know, it was really, really strange, but I enjoyed that of it, you know. Let's
It's
talk
almost
about
kind
it
of
just
hold on, like the undertones are almost, and that's why I hate using the word Zack Snyder or the name Zack Snyder to describe any of the DC stuff because I don't feel like that's very fair. It feels like that's like their undertone, and whereas you would say that that they don't copy Marvel's blueprint, I'm gonna push back on that in a second. But like this is not like this is part of their blueprint when it comes to DC. It's almost when you see the first thing, they try to mimic directors and the cinematography of the shots just because they want it to feel like it's all part of the same thing.
right.
So I don't know. I keep saying DC-ish is the way that I keep describing it.
Right. Well, and the only reason I say Zack Snyder's is because it's not so much the storytelling. It's Zack Snyder has a very, very distinct look to his movies. You know, like you can almost look at it and tell right away this is a Zack Snyder movie just by the way it's filmed, the camera angles, the color palettes, the slow motion, everything, and it just kind of felt like that. So I guess you're right. It's not really. I shouldn't say Zack Snyderish. It is kind of what DC is going with. It's their kind of their mood. It was kind of set up by Zack Snyder. So yeah, and what I mean, the not following the blueprint of Marvel, I don't think. I actually think that's kind of a bad thing. I think they'd be more successful if they followed the blueprint of Marvel. You know, but
I just don't think it's Marvel's blueprint. I think it's more all encompassing. Like it's more like Saturday morning cartoon telling like a broader story. And I think that's where I'm with you because I think that they would greatly benefit from it. And that's the point that I'll bring up when we get to the end. But I just hate that because I feel like I'm robbed. I feel like I'm robbed of the story. I mentioned it during Andor, you know, like a lot of people seem to be hanging back and not watching Andor because, you know, they want to wait till they can binge the whole thing, which is all good and well. But like when I finally get the Black Adam movie, I don't want to be just thrown into it. I mean, they've worked for 8 years. I mean, on and off with this thing. Like, I want to know more about it. I want more, like, I know that they can't go back and like reshoot to give me more all the stuff that I want. You know, they need Black Adam 2 or the case may be. But I hate the feeling like people hate knowing that they can't just binge Andor. I hate knowing that I don't have more to go off of and I have no plan from DC as to what they're going to do with this.
I get that.
So that part of it I tried to cope with because I'm going to tell you, I went into it with that stigma watching this movie. I'm like, there was a one of the before movie things that they do, and I was talking about, you know, like the DCEU, and so I'm sitting there thinking like, you know, I can't say DCU, it's always DC Expanded Universe because it's, you know, like none of it, like it keeps going back and forth trying to weave a story. I'm like, I just want the story, just give me the whole entire thing. And I know that you said that, you know, Snyder had his whole entire thing laid out and so on and so forth, but we're past that. We're here now.
Right. Now we've got to have a new plan.
Yeah.
I agree.
And now you got Black Adam, and I think that The Rock as Black Adam did fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I didn't need anything from the character, and you know, he, like I said, he did a really good job. I want more of it all now. Like, how are you going to give me a Justice Society story? How are you going to, you know, I don't even need the whole story, but like, I know enough that there's comics to go back to and to read and everything else. But man, I want it all, and I want it on screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I felt like they missed an opportunity to really kind of, you know, tell the story was very simple in this movie. You know, don't let the bad guy get on the throne, and who's the bad guy. I really like those two things. I wanted more.
Right. Well, and hopefully we will. Like I said, I think that they were using this as kind of a beta test for the Justice Society to see if it works and if people would watch that movie. And I think they probably could have just done that anyway, and people would have still watched it because they've done a good job with these characters. But let's talk about these characters. We got some Justice Society, and Sarah, I'll start with you because you got your boy, Mr. Brosnan, Dr. Fate. Let's just go down the list and talk about him. What do you think? Look, how they portrayed him, everything else. Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, I think it was an interesting character. It was interesting how he just like carried the helmet around. It was just like he was just kind of go back and forth, and he just played an older character. The suit looked fantastic. I mean, it looked great. It was almost like he was kind of like the voice of reason throughout, because it's what did he say? Something about it wasn't something. What was like your choice for who lives and who dies, or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's up to fate. Yeah.
Yeah, and but it's kind of like the things where he could see the future, but then he also made a statement. He's like, well, the future, it can change. So you're not really locked into that. But yeah, he was pretty yeah, it was interesting the way when you saw his mysticism or whatnot. I mean, it did kind of remind you of a certain Marvel character, but you kind of take that, because if you think about mysticism, as a whole, that's okay. That's fine, because you may be, diving into the same thing. I mean, I had no problem with that.
I didn't make that connection a single time. I'm going to tell you right here and now.
I mean,
didn't either, honestly,
the only thing was the prismatic thing. That's the only thing that clued me. And I was just like, oh, I have kind of seen that before, but it made sense because, like I said, if you go into the mysticism, it doesn't say one has precedence over the other. I mean, it's fine.
And to be fair, Marvel and DC, they copy each other all the time on these things. They admittedly do it, and there's only so many different kinds of superpowers and heroes you can have. So yeah, sorry, let me interrupt.
But I mean, no, that's fine. And like I said, but I mean, I noticed that, but I'm not going to sit there and say, oh well, one does one better than the other, or oh shit, they're taking. I'm like, it's fine, it's fine. I'm perfectly fine with it. Yeah, I mean, the Dr. Fate character, I mean, that was. But when he was, out of the suit, I mean, homeboy was like rocking some old school, like the the robe, the cravat, the whole 9 yards. I'm like, who's just gonna be, just strutting through a ship, just wearing that shit? I'm like, seriously, dude.
Gotta look good,
I'm like, you're just bringing like the old school. But yeah, it was interesting. I'll say my thoughts for Hawkman for the next go around.
Okay. Ross, what do you think about Dr. Fate?
I really liked Pierce Brosnan's take on the character out of the suit and in the suit. I thought they were very good and they were very separate. I mean, like his uncertainty with knowing the future and the way that he was able to portray it without words, like just his mannerisms, was fantastic. I did not know what I was going to get because, Pierce Brosnan's my bond, like I grew up with him with that. And
Goldeneye, baby.
Yeah, like
That's right.
It's tough to see him outside of that character, even though I liked, I can't think of the name of the movie now. The one with Cinnamon and where he's doing the thing with the apple hat. I'll come back to it anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
He did a very good superhero. Like, even though you didn't see his face, like in a suit with the voice and everything else, and like even when he was trying to talk with Black Adam, whenever Black Adam was engaged or captured or whatever, prisoned, I guess probably be the best word.
Yeah,
that whole dialogue or monologue was really good because it didn't feel like it was forced. And he didn't feel like he was talking to a screen. It felt like he was really trying to actually, talk to that character. So I think it was a win all around. I really had zero problems whatsoever with Dr. Fate.
Yeah, I agree with both of y'all. I love the character. Pierce Brosnan does a great job of portraying a character who is troubled, who is seriously troubled. And then there's, spoilers for this. We'll go into the one scene where he's at the very end. He's talking about, for the first time I look and I don't see anything. And just like the relief on his face, like you can tell this is a man that his entire life, while this is a power, it's also a burden. and it's something that's been it's been a burden for him his entire life, and for the first time, he's kind of relieved of that, and he did a really, really good job portraying that. And I was like, okay, I do like this. I don't know where we're going to go in the future with this character. I would love to see him in this role more, or just see more of Dr. Fate, but I don't know what the future holds with this. So,
a question before we go further.
Yeah.
Is it assumed that the mask finds a new?
I believe so. Yeah, that's
person?
generally how
Okay.
it works. Yeah. So
I just want to make sure.
I'm not as familiar with Dr. Fate in the comics, so I don't know how many actual characters have worn the helm and been, but I'm sure that's, you know, they're going to be setting up for that to be a character in the future. So I hope, or at least I hope they are. Let's talk about Hawkman. I'll start with this one. I thought they did a great job. The actor who plays him was great. His character himself, I didn't like as much because he's too like Captain America without being Captain America. And like, this is an argument that has been all over the internet all day about people who are hating on this movie about heroes don't kill and blah, blah, blah. Get the F out of here, man. I'm so tired of hearing that argument because every single hero kills. I can show you in every single Marvel movie where every single one of them that we think is so good. I can show you where Captain America kills people, just kills people. That, you know, he throws a guy off a helicarrier. You know, Iron Man blows up stuff all the time, but people that blows up bad guys, people kill, man. The best characters do. You never kill main villains, like huge villains, because that continues the story writing. But every hero kills fodder characters. It's just the way it is, man. And like when people start to make this argument,
minimize
like,
life.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they definitely do
taking life
casualties. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They can minimize taking casualties, but even so, like every superhero who's in a battle, if it's just a fodder character, they're killing that character, like to get to the main guy. Like that's just the way it is. So like this argument is so difficult, and it's the only thing about Hawkman that I didn't like was like, and I get that was his voice, that was what he was supposed to represent in this movie is you don't do this and this and that, but it's like, man, like you guys are harping on this a little bit too much. Like you're obviously not going to win this fight. Now I do want to say Hawkman is an alien. He's not human. They didn't drop on any of that in this movie, which makes me wonder how they're going with this character. However, with the damage he was taking and how bad he was getting his ass beat, I think that they're going to say he's an alien because there's no way a human, even with wings of armor, is going to take the beating that he took. You know, so that is the problem with just dropping the Justice Society in there. I like the character, I like this guy, and I like the way it looked, but I need to know more about it. Like I really do, because I want to know more about it. Like I really enjoyed the character. I want to know how he gets to this point, or something after this at least. And hopefully we'll get that. Sarah, what'd you think of Hawkman?
Oh my God, he was such a pompous asshole in the beginning. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, he just struts in there and like.
It's kind of like he was kind of like Bruce Wayne. Like he's a billionaire in this. Dude has unlimited money.
And that was a pretty damn nice spread he had going on too. And it felt very what was it? Professor X's school, because like with the ground opening up and that was very that's exactly what I thought about that. But no, he just walks in, and how are you gonna walk this being that's been that just is awoken after 5,000 years, it's powerful as shit. You're just gonna walk up to him and be like, yeah, we're gonna need you to come with us now. We're just gonna, we're gonna shut you down. Mm-hmm. I'm like, who are you? I'm like, really? What? And maybe that would help, have a little bit of background. Like, what have you done in the past to, warrant you just strutting right in, thinking somebody's just going to bow down to your, it's almost like a military, I guess a military infiltration too, because, they just kind of swooped in and saying, hey, we're going to do it this way. We'll clean out all the bad. It's like, we're not really going to clean out all the bad guys for you guys here, the people that actually live here, but we're just going to take this guy back with us. And you think there's going to be no opposition at all. Mm-hmm. Especially the fact when you have the entire city or town, they're like, he's our savior. Who are you? You get the hell out of here. We're good. So, but it was nice to see, as far as throughout the film, that there was a different, kind of eased up just a hair. Kind of saw that, it's, like I said, you don't see black and white. You got to see the shades of gray. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So, but then it was nice to see the relationship between he and Dr. Fate as well. So It's almost like Dr. Fate kind of kept him in check and vice versa. So I mean, they were kind of a good foil for each other.
Mhm.
But yeah, the dude right off the bat, I was like, oh my God, who the hell is this guy?
Oh yeah.
It's like, geez.
I do love they make it a point to bring that up with whenever Justice Society comes there and they're like, we're here to liberate you. And he's like, they're like, no, you've never been here before. And now all of a sudden he's here and he just liberated this entire city. And now you're trying to take him. So no, get the F out of here.
Yeah,
That was pretty
exactly.
cool how they portrayed that. And that's, that's a reflection of real life in some situations with things too, so it's like, well, I mean, what can you do? Ross, what do you think of Hawkman?
First off, that storyline I think is going to be like even better done in the next movie I got tickets for. But Hawkman was my biggest problem with the character, or with the character in this movie. We just drop in, like, Waller's just ready to call him up and be like, do a thing, like, and make it happen, put together a team. He's like, oh, I'm putting together a team. I'm like,
Exactly.
did I walk into this movie late?
Yeah.
Like, was there another 30 minutes I don't understand?
Right.
Because I'm going to tell you, I don't know enough about Hawkman. I didn't know he was from another planet. It did make me question on whether or not, like, he could truly take that type of beating, because I'm like, where does this come from? What is this suit made out of? I'm like, and not only that, like, the dude can put on his cowl and his wings can come out of nowhere, but in order to see infrared, he has to say infrared vision. And so, like, the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, who is this guy? And why does he deserve the accolades that they're putting on the screen when they haven't given me the path to get to that myself? The actor, let me not rob anything from this. The actor did a fantastic job.
Right.
Like, I love the way that he acted. He didn't take me out of the character. I just didn't know the character well enough to be into the character. I liked, he had his little spinning mace. I guess it wasn't really a mace, but the ball, and then turn around and had the axe, which was really cool. I liked his suit. I did only think that it was probably, when you start talking about, like, practicality when it comes to suits, and I mean, look, don't get me wrong, Dr. Fate couldn't really see. Like, how do you see through that? But I kept looking at Hawkman's eyes, and I kept trying to figure out, like, how is he seeing? Like, how does he have such good vision? Because I saw him struggle as an actor with looking at certain things in this movie, and so that part was comical and
eyes like a hawk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
My biggest takeaway is I didn't get enough about him, and I needed that, and that was one of my biggest down points, or down.
But what was interesting too is, like, with the Suicide Squad, is the boy afterwards, he even made the point or the connection is like, yeah, it felt like Suicide Squad. I'm like, okay, I don't know if it's the fact of seeing Waller, or if it's the fact of just assembling this team out of nowhere, or what. But I was like, okay, the 12-year-old boy figured that one out. I was like, okay.
So my question is, the Suicide Squad did the same thing. They just dropped characters in, and we're expected to know these characters, and learn these characters from the little bit that we get of them here. But then they do stuff like they turn around and they make a Peacemaker show. So would you be excited if they turned around and you heard about, like, a Justice Society show where these characters are more fleshed out, and maybe even more characters after this? Or would you rather it be a movie? Because I think you could flesh these characters out really well in a show and then still have them in the movies, especially since they've already been in one.
Either or. My biggest problem is that I don't get the building. I keep getting the aftermath.
Right.
They keep doing patchwork, and I don't want patchwork. I want, like, you don't build a building starting at the penthouse. Like, give me the foundation and then build me up from there. That's what I want. And I keep feeling like it's always, like, Suicide Squad, the second one was a real meh movie for me. And I'm going to tell you, Peacemaker was fantastic. Loved it. Yeah. Loved that show. If I could have had all that going into it, I'm not saying that it would have made the show better or the movie better, but I knew what I was getting going into Suicide Squad.
Connect some dots.
The whole point, Suicide Squad is like, all right, if you take a bunch of things, shake them up, and, like, diet, you just want to throw them out and see what happens. Like, that's Suicide Squad. And you throw in a random villain. When they flushed out Peacemaker, so much better. If I can, just Hawkman alone, not to mention, like, all the other characters, if you want to bring the whole society, Any of it. I'm here for the story. I want a story.
Okay, I agree. That's something I want too. I'm gonna combine Adam and Cyclone because they were kind of secondary characters in this. Like of the main Justice Society, it focused more on Doctor Fate and Hawkman, and we got a little bit of Adam and Cyclone. I like these characters. I like their powers. The suits look good. I like the way they're portrayed. I'm really, really glad they didn't go down a romantic path with these two. It started to look like that's where they were going with this, and I was like, oh no, I don't need this in this movie, and they didn't, at least in this movie. So I was happy they didn't go down that way. But the actors that played the characters and the way it looked I loved it. But once again, I just want to know more about them. Like I'd like to see.
I felt we got more of a
Cyclone's
background on
powers
them
looked
than the
awesome.
other ones.
Huh?
Felt like we got more of a background on them than the other ones.
Yeah, they had. I mean, they had very few little short snippets in the
Mhm.
background where they're always kind of in the background waiting for things. One problem I had with Adam is I feel like they tried to give you a kind of a Disney-fied Deadpool. And it's kind of my fear of what Disney's going to do to Deadpool, because that's kind of what we got. He's just this funny quip, clueless kind of guy. The suit even looked like kind of a blue Deadpool suit. Like, and once again, things are copied and you can only do so many things, but I just feel like he was supposed to be comic relief in this. And there were a few moments where it was like, okay, that's funny. But then there were a few moments where it was like, okay, that was just, we could have done without that,
I was waiting for him to go, hey.
Yeah.
Like, when you bring in Henry Winkler, I'm like, why would you not just do one little homage?
That is true. But overall, I mean, I like the characters. I just need to know more about them. Like, I thought the way they portrayed Cyclone and her powers was really cool. Looked awesome. I just want to know more about it. Like, this seems like a character that could be really, really powerful. Let's see how powerful she can be. What do y'all think?
Well, man, I felt like they were just kind of, side characters. I mean, as far as and like I was saying, I feel like you got more of a background on them because you heard a little bit of snippet about Cyclone, how she kind of, she kind of mentioned a little something like what happened with her. And then, of course, with Atom Smasher, it was like, okay, well, he's like second generation. Okay, I got a hand-me-down suit, which is vintage. The Henry Winkler, that was unexpected. You're like, whoa, okay, that's kind of cool. But I don't know. I don't think I really had a problem with the kid Atom Smasher like doing what, being kind of like the comic relief, because I just saw him as a young kid that he didn't know what in the hell he was doing.
Right. Yep. This is their first mission, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wasn't really expecting a whole lot of him. I didn't expect him to come in on like, Hawkman level and being like, oh, I know exactly what to do. I mean, it's almost kind of like, when you first meet, and I can compare it to Spider-Man and Marvel in Civil War. The first time you see him, he was, I'm not saying he was a comic relief, but he was a young kid coming in, this superpower and just, trying to fit in. Like, what can I do? So, I mean, some of it might have been that might have been some of the humor that I was like, okay, yeah, you kind of forcing a little bit, but I mean, it didn't really take me away from anything.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have made as much sense if he wasn't as kind of, I don't want to say goofy, but I mean, that was just kind of like not knowing really what to do. I mean, how, you're in this city and you just, what do I do? Oh, well, you just grow.
All right.
That's what you do. I mean, it is what it is. And for your point, as far as the mask, the boy pointed out too, he's like, that's just like Deadpool. I'm like, son, there's like so many masks you can make.
Right.
To make it work. I mean, let's build a bridge, get over it. It's fine.
Right. Yeah, like I said, it didn't take me out of it, but I definitely noticed it. And actually, now that you've mentioned it, he's almost like a combination of Spider-Man and Deadpool. Like that's the way it looks. But once again, it's the character in the movies, and you can only have so many different looks and different powers. So, Ross, any thoughts?
I thought Atom Smasher his aloofness was pretty funny. I don't think that they did a good job telling like a veteran to rookie story here, where you have Hawkman, and I don't really think Fate was in a position, but Hawkman was too up his own ass to really teach these other ones. And you can't, your comparison, Sarah, Spider-Man Civil War is perfect. I feel like he was given more of a heads up, like here's what's going to happen, but you're also like super powerful and you got a little bit of an idea of like how to use your powers. Here you had Atom Smasher with no direction. Like he didn't know where he was going to go, what he was going to do. He's like, they told me to show up, and I showed up.
Yeah.
Which played very well into the me not knowing what was going on part.
Mhm.
I love the back and forth between him and Hawkman. It's like you and I.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, and there's just nothing else to compare it to. But it felt very Sam Wilson-ish. Like
Yes.
I kept getting that,
Mhm.
him and Ant-Man, having that
Mhm.
back and forth, which I had no problem with because I liked it. I like that.
You mean wings and like able to grow?
Yeah,
That kind of
right?
thing?
Yeah. And so I just wanted to see more, and I thought that, come towards the end, like we could possibly see a little bit more, but we didn't. We didn't get anything else out of that. So I had no problem with the Atom Smasher aspect. The Cyclone, my biggest problem was that her abilities seemed more like they were established through science, the way that she was explaining it.
Right.
And it looked more mutant mysticalness than it did sciencey. And so I was trying to understand. I couldn't make that connection. I had no problem with either of their characters. I think the actors did really good. I thought that her whole get up right from the get to show up like with the boots and everything else, and it's just like, she's super duper smart. She's got a razor blade earring. Like there's all sorts of weird things going on with her. But at the same time, like she's smart as shit. And she's like complete. Like she's a complete character. Like she's not bringing trauma to the table.
Right.
She was able to handle the things that happened to her and regurgitate them to someone that she just met with zero problems.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't bear any weight on her face whatsoever describing that. And so I was in it. Like there was nothing that took me out of it for either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was a good step mentor for him. And I just don't think either one of them had a good mentor other than that.
Right. And actually, that one scene you're talking about there where she talks about how she came to be in their powers, they're basically just kind of going back and forth talking about their powers. It's cool because, like, I see that and I'm like, that's a movie. I want to see that.
Yep.
Like, I don't want to see you get kidnapped and injected with anything else, but I want to see your origin. And that would be really, really cool to see how that happened. I don't know a lot about this character, so it'd be awesome to see. All right. So I think we've all decided that we like the Justice Society. We just need more of them. We need to know more about them. Like, it would behoove them to make a movie or put them in a show or do something, but maybe that should have been done before this came out. I mean, we've known this movie's come out for a long time with these characters in it. They should have, but you're talking to a company that's, going damn near bankrupt. So they're putting a lot of eggs in this basket on this being good. So they had to put a lot in there. Ross, you're a music guy. I want to talk to you about the music of this movie because the music and the score was one thing me and my buddy talked about on the way home. I was impressed with the music. I liked the music choice. Everything was good for the moments they were in, the scenes they were in. The score I wasn't as impressed with. There wasn't like anything that stood out for me like this is Black Adam. Like when I hear the Wonder Woman score or like the Man of Steel, like I know, okay, this is it. There wasn't anything that stood out for me like that in this movie. Maybe going back and viewing it again, listening again, I might hear something I didn't before because I was paying attention to a lot of stuff. But as far as it goes for me, there wasn't anything like insanely impressive with the score in this. Like the music choices, just, what do you think?
I had 0 notes on the music in this movie, and that's not like me. I'm going to tell you right now, I was more impressed by the last episode of Andor and the score and the music the score that they had in that episode than I was in this movie. Okay. And I think that it fell very flat. Not that the music that they had wasn't impactful. It just didn't. It wasn't groundbreaking. It wasn't like you're bringing The Rock to the screen. He should have something. He should have something, and not. Superman has his music, like that was established decades ago. Batman's always like doom and gloom with his sound. When they brought out, is it Tia or Tina, whoever came out with that theme for Wonder Woman? I'm like, that shit was fantastic. The whole bass cello was perfect. I fell flat on this. I felt like they were trying to create a city, and they were trying to create this little bubble of a world that they wanted to tell it in, and they had a great opportunity to mesh together different sounds that we already know, and then give us something that would be bombastic for The Rock, and they didn't. I didn't get it.
Yeah. You know what they should have done, and I just thought about this, and this would have been perfect because The Rock has history before he was ever a actor of being a great actor.
I know where you're going with it.
They should have just taken his Brahma Bull music from whenever he was a wrestler, cut out the "Do You Smell What the Rock Is Cooking," add some orchestra to that, and use that as his theme because that was a badass. Dude, me and Ross used to buy those albums of all the intros for all the wrestlers and listen to those. That was a badass intro.
Don't think less of us. It's okay.
My ears only perked up when I heard glass breaking. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody did, Yeah. But there, especially from that age of the wrestling, the Attitude Era of wrestling, there were so many good intros that could come out, and this is like a sign to him. That's what I think they should have done, is created something out of that for his score. Like when you hear this, it's The Rock. Like it's the fucking Brahma Bull, man. Like I want to see that, and that's one spot where I think they dropped the ball in. I agree there.
I think that it was massive because it wasn't until I got in the truck on the way home and I put something on to listen to that I realized I don't remember the music from this movie. Like nothing stood out to me.
I don't really either. The only thing that really stands out to me is just the action. I mean, that's because I think my eyes were more in tune than my ears, honestly.
And actually, that brings up a next point. I don't want to step on your points, Greg, but
you're
good. The visual parts of this movie, some things move so fast, and some of the panning, like side to side when they were showing stuff. I tried to have the conversation last night, and apparently I was the only one. Did it not feel like you were getting like motion blur on the screen? Did you guys have any problems with like seeing? I see this more and more, and I think it's more with VFX and everything else, where they really try to make fast movements. And I can only relate it to like when high definition started on TVs and people were watching sports, and you got like that super like 8-bit lag, where the resolution wasn't that great. In the movies, it's not like that, but it's almost like I get like this dysmorphia of what I'm looking at, and like it doesn't seem like it works out very well for me at all.
Yeah, I picked this one out a few times.
Yeah, so it happened way more than once, and I think that's a product of just CGI. Trying to put too much of it in there.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe it's the transformation, like from resolutions, small screen, big screen.
I always have. Anytime there's a speedster on screen, it's always like this for me because like they only make the characters go as fast as they need to go for that moment. Yeah. And so it's like there are moments in this movie where Black Adam's moving so fast, like you really just see kind of like you said, like kind of a blur, and then he's there, and then kind of blur and he's there. And then there's other moments where it's like, is he going to make it to this bullet or not? Which he's going to, but it's like he's struggling to get there fast enough. And I'm like, well, it's the same problem they have the Flash, like realistically, you've portrayed the Flash or you've portrayed this character to be as fast as they need to be to do whatever they need to do until them being that fast solves the problem. Then they're not fast enough. And it's like, well, okay. But yeah, I get what you're saying. And maybe it is just the blurriness of people moving fast on screen.
It's not even the people moving fast. It's just it's almost like it's the background that screws it up for me. Okay. And so it's always like when they're trying to like show a shot and they want to move that shot like just a little bit like really fast. It's the background that like I have to point out to you. It's one of those things that
I'll have to look for it. Like I said, I'm gonna go see it again. So I'll definitely have to look for these things. And that's why I love doing these movies because I go back a second time and I see so many things I didn't see the first time.
I think it was when I really saw it, it's like in that first epic battle. It's like when you saw Black Adam up there floating and then like he would like flinging things. It's like when he turned, that's when I noticed it was. Yeah. That's when I noticed it because it was just like
I picked up multiple times. You're right. That scene where like when he would turn and they would turn the background with him. Mm-hmm. And whether they don't move it like a whole lot, like it's not like a real massive shift. It's more like just like a real quick movement. And when they do that, it feels like it's
you just see it's lagging. It's kind of weird. That was like the one thing. It's like I'm like, okay. Usually I don't catch things like that, but it was a bit obvious.
Okay.
The Mandalorian did it to me for one episode, and I thought that it was the volume, and then I realized that it comes more with like it's almost like there's a translation problem between the way that they shoot and some of the effects that they try to bring into it also.
Mhm.
Makes sense. Okay, well, I got one more point to bring up that I want to talk about, and then we'll just go through some scenes, and then we'll rank it. I want to talk about one thing my buddy brought up that he said was a problem he had for it was the dialogue. Did y'all have a problem with any of the dialogue in this? He said sometimes it was kind of strung out and unnecessary in some scenes, and I can get it to a certain point what he's saying there. It wasn't a big deal for me, but there were some things like I don't know. I guess maybe he was more or less talking about like the catchphrase thing. Like some things were just kind of like forced, you know. I thought they may have forced that whole catchphrase things a few times, but you saw it progress throughout the show, throughout the movie, and actually the payoff at the end actually was pretty good. But there's even a scene where he's trying to say it. He's like, "Tell the man in black," like right before that guy dies, and I thought, but he said that he had a problem with some of the dialogue, and it just being kind of bleh. Was that anything? Did y'all pick up on anything like that?
This is the way I thought about it. Okay, you've got this guy been basically asleep, prison, whatever, for 5,000 years.
Mhm.
He comes and it's like he does his thing, and then next thing you know, he wakes up in this room, which that kid's room, that was very
Looks like my wall.
yeah.
I have two of the things he had hanging on his wall. I have
room.
those comics, and I was like, "Yay, I have those comics." Yeah.
So he wakes up, and so really the first person he talks to is a kid.
Mhm.
So like a lot of it, and that I told my son this, and my husband agreed. I said that would have been my son if he had woke up and because it was like question, like blah, 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 blah. And even when he's like, "You move, blah, 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 move, blah, blah, blah. I'm moving you right now." Blah, blah, blah. That is my son, 100%. But yeah, some of the things. But I mean, that's like the first thing I thought was just kind of weird how. Number one, you just wake up and you're just speaking English.
That was one thing he said. He was like, "Well, how does he know English after 5,000?" I said, "You're right. That is a plot hole, but that's movie magic." I was like, I'd rather them just ignore that than me have to read subtitles the whole movie.
Yeah, I get that.
You know?
So I'm like, okay, I can let that go. I'm good with that. But then again, like I said, it's like, he's talking to a kid and it's almost like he has kind of like he doesn't know anything about his city now. Even when he looks out, he's like, I don't know this place. And, I can't remember the lady's name, but she's like, yeah, this is your city. This is where you lived. And he's like, no. But I mean, 5,000 years different. Right. So really a lot of the dialogue, it didn't really, I didn't mind it. Mm-hmm. I didn't mind it. Like I said, I had more issues with, like the discussion we had with the Justice Society, because I'm like, why is this guy being such a jerk face? And, that kind of thing. I have more issues with that, or, just coming in and automatically assuming this is the way of the world.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, but for the most part, I mean, like I said, there was probably some jokes that might have been a little bit forced,
mm-hmm.
but for the most part, I mean, it's a rock movie. I mean, I'd probably, that's what I expect. I mean, I expect that kind of dialogue like that. I expect, like subtle jokes like that, little one quippers and, that kind of thing, like the sarcasm.
Well, it was funny because that part you just mentioned about him speaking English after 5,000 years, and I was like, well, and I told my friend, I was like, you gotta kind of have movie magic, you gotta have belief. I was like, because we always have aliens from other planets that speak English, and we don't question it. Iron Man's in a suit that, while it's an iron suit, I can get into a car wreck and I'm still gonna get hurt. Like if you fall from 30,000 feet in the air, even if you're wearing an iron suit, it's going to be like being in a terrible car crash. You're not going to just get up. So you have to, at some point in time, you have to suspend belief.
And it's not Star Trek. You don't have a universal translator.
Yeah, to make this work. And he was like, yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's just, it is one thing to nitpick, but at the same time, I'd rather just believe that than read subtitles, like for half the movie until he learns English or whatever. So I was like, okay, that's cool.
One simple line could have fixed that, the wizard's magic is like, all encompassing or like unknown. Sure. Or, like one simple thing could have fixed that, because it was just such a shock. Like,
because think about it. Even 5,000 years ago, like the English language is not even created yet, correct? And the
Mhm.
wizards are speaking the English language to give him the power. And I'm like, okay, so like you gotta, yeah, okay, there we go. Definitely gotta have some
That's what I'm
difficulty.
saying. There could be anything. All I
Mhm.
needed was something.
Yeah.
That's all that I needed. Just
I get that.
something. Because once again, when you leave it up to me, I start poking holes.
Mhm.
And I don't do that out of like any reason of other than like my brain starts going, but how?
Right.
Or but why?
hmm
And so don't leave it open for me. Like that's the problem.
I
I
get that.
think that so many other things do a very good job of like, this is why. And you're like, okay, cool. Dialogue though, the kid didn't do it for me. I think all of his lines fell a little flat. It felt like he was I could have gone, having him a little bit more fanboyish. I could have gone having him being a little bit more anything. He reminded me of the kids off of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. And it was very, very like C-rated kid acting.
Okay.
Like they just plucked him out of somewhere, and I thought that they could have done more with it. And I came to that thought at the end when, the other dude took the throne, and all the dead people started coming up, and he went to go rally the troops, and he threw up the bang sign, and like everyone was okay with it.
Sorry.
And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, he there's just so much more that he could be doing. He could be acting so much more, or he could be saying something so much different. Like the kid fell flat for me, and I think that it starts with the lines that they gave him, and I was expecting a little bit more out of it. I didn't get it. I like the uncle. I thought that it was so stupid that he was going to die of electricity, and then he kept screwing around with Black Adam. I'm like, the dude's got lightning out of his fingertips.
Yeah, they
you're
mentioned
going to
that.
die by electricity.
Well, he's an
Then think
electrician.
about this. Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
that's a problem for me. Yeah. I like that though, because like at the end he was like, "It's okay, I can go do this. I know I'm not going to die from this." It's like, okay,
no,
that's
perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
Although
I
I do want to know how him and her got Black Adam from that hole into that bed. Like Brock's got to weigh what? Probably close to 290 pounds.
And did you see those flights of stairs?
Yeah, like there's no way.
I mean,
Yeah, because he like floated down. He's like, I'm not. He's like,
and did y'all notice too? I don't think he walked in one scene in this movie.
he did.
He's floating. Is he okay? He's floating and the whole time I'm looking at him like, I know it's The Rock, but I'm like, there's no way your legs get that big if you're floating the whole time. Even though I know if I had the ability to fly, I would float everywhere too. So I mean, I'm not mad at him.
No way you get gains without that walking pains.
That's right. There's no way without using them legs. Them legs are getting, because his legs are as big around my waist. It's insane.
Yeah.
This guy's fucking huge, man.
I did think that the question was in my head, like, well, if you could, would you? And that is like, if you could fly, would you just fly all the time?
Everywhere. Everywhere I went, I would fly.
But after a while, it comes off very pompous. Like, like when your legs aren't moving and you're just doing things and you're just like floating around, like it's a whole nother character attribute that, some people don't need. I mean, he did, because he walked down the stairs, because I think he started to realize it was almost like Vision in Age of Ultron. Like when he started to like put on the clothes and the cape and everything, he realized Black Adam that he needed to kind of like be more like the people he was around, and not just like the 5,000-year-old weirdo that he was for 5 seconds before he died. So,
yeah. All right, well, let's talk about some scenes. I'll start us off. I thought, because I wasn't really paying attention to time at this point where he's captured and he says, "I won't say the word anymore," and they put him in this. I thought that was how they were going to end the movie, and I was like, "Oh no, they just ruined this movie for me. Oh no, like it can't end like this." And then it didn't end up ending like that, which is great. But that scene for me, I was just like, I don't know, man. I don't. With everything they've done with him, even with the character progression, I don't see him just giving up like that. Like, even with him looking down and being like, well, look at the destruction I've caused. I just don't see him being like, yeah, I'll give up and I'll never say it again. Like, that one didn't sit well with me. I was like, they could have, I mean, the only other option to get him in captivity is to capture him, but they've obviously showed that he has a weakness in this. They showed that he has a weakness. They never exploited it, not one time in this movie. Like the Earththerium or whatever it is, the stuff that they're
Ethereum.
mining. Yeah, that's like his weakness. Every time he comes in contact with it, it hurts. It's the only thing that hurts him. But they never ever mention it, and they never. It's like they're planting the seed for like, this is his kryptonite. So in the future movie, somebody's going to use this, but they never mention it at all in this movie. And it's like, well, you could have used that to figure out a better way than him just saying, "Okay, I give up," even though he had absolutely no need to because there's nobody stopping him. That one didn't sit that well with me. I was like, they should have written that a little better, but it's part of his character development, I guess. It's him deciding not to be a complete villain. So that one didn't sit well with me, but they also them having to
Don't tell another thing because you already just described two. So hold on before you go. You're gonna
Okay,
tell
yeah,
another one.
sorry, go ahead then.
Sarah, you want to go?
Oh, I just thought like the I guess we'll just call them what they are. The killing scenes. I don't know what it was. I'm like, just give me violence. I just loved it, and that's the whole. That shit was so epic. I mean, literally, I'm sitting here watching. It's like, what? Oh, and I was the only one. So it was. Yeah, that was pretty epic, especially like when it was first awoken, and just. Because these mercenary guys, they were like total assholes too. I mean, they just came in just thinking, oh, we're just going to shoot it. Oh, you going to shoot it? Okay. All right. Go right ahead. Not every answer is to shoot it. But yeah, it's just like the way you just flipping helicopters and just loved how you just kept taking the folks right up to like this freaking stratosphere. It's like, oh, interrogation scenes are just fantastic too. Oh, you going to tell me? Because the first one that tells me is like, you're live. Oh, well, you're not gonna tell me? Okay, cool. So yeah, I don't know. It was just
that
it was
was
a bit
right.
much.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. I loved it.
With that scene, that's where I was trying to figure out this like what the movie was going to do because like it was literally like a bang bang shoot 'em up to that point. And so I was trying to understand like if he's going to keep killing people, okay, then where are we going to get a story at? And clearly the story is going to be like it's all about this city, which it was. And then like when you said, Greg, when you reached that moment to where he said the words, like you're trying to figure out like, okay, so now he's done, but then I was realizing that like, well, there's no plot here. Like we haven't been given anything other than him coming out and killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going to move on? How are they going to build anything that this character, Black Adam, Rock, or was it Tef Adam?
Tef Adam, yeah.
Tef Adam.
And so when you're sitting there trying to figure out like, what's the problem going to be? And they pulled a Superman and to where like, Superman decided he didn't want to be Superman anymore. And all of a sudden he went on ice, like they completely iced the character. And like, like that's exactly what needed to happen, or else you weren't going to understand, number one, how the big bad was going to succeed, and number two, why he was so important. Like, why was Black Adam, like, where did this come from?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew the beginning of this thing didn't sit right with me, like with the whole kid and the, the sword and then the wizards and like everything else. I'm like, something's missing. Like, none of this really makes logical sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why they were so vague. I had a problem with the son handing the power over so easy, but it also showed, what am I looking for here? It showed like the open-mindedness of like a kid, right? Like, like I would do anything to like help because kids don't know any better. There's no sacrifice in a kid's mind that's too great for their parents if they're treated right.
Right.
So that was half of it. And then the other half was, the bad guy needed time to show back up and do bad things. And you got both of those. And I keep saying that bang, bang, shoot 'em up because I was looking for a whole lot more. And, I expected the Justice Society to maybe come in and do some things and act like they were like the Justice Society rather than like we showed up here at the wrong time society.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, what was the other point that you were making, Greg? You said that, and then the Ethereum. That seemed like a perfect thing to happen. I'm like, why is it the one thing that comes from the place where he's at? We've seen it before. We're here to see it again. And not only that, like, Homegirl's rocking his wife's necklace.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was that not the same necklace? Because it sure looked like the same necklace to me that his wife had whenever they did the flashback scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am looking at it. I'm like, what kind of connection do these people have? But also, how are we once again in the one place where this one thing exists? And it's the one thing that screws with him. I'm like, come on, people.
Mm-hmm.
I know you can only tell the story so many times, but make it like a little bit more far-fetched.
No, I agree. That was that was, like I said, that was one of my big issues. Is they show a couple of times, especially right off the bat, like right away, as soon as the first time you see him get cut in the stomach.
Mhm.
You know, with the stuff. So you're like, okay, bam, they just showed us a weakness. Then you see the point where he punches the crown and it
And
hurts
then it
his hand.
screws with him, and then he fixes himself.
Yeah,
Why don't you just fix yourself to begin with?
right. Yeah. So like those things are kind of, I don't know, man. I think that wasn't very well handled. Like I said, I think that you could have had a point where you defeated him because you've learned what his weakness is. But I think that when you do that, it takes away from the mid-credit scene, and that's why they didn't do that. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I think that when you do that, it takes away from that scene, and it's like, well, okay, I'll make that sacrifice to get what I get.
But when you tell me that Hawkman is not from this world, you saying those words took more away from that mid-credit scene from me too. Because it went back to, maybe you don't need to fight someone from this world. Maybe you need to fight someone from not from this world. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Wait a second. If
Didn't you
he's
just
not
do
from
that?
this world, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I'm wondering what they're doing with him on this, because, like, I mean, everything he had looked like a machine on his back, looked like a mechanical set of wings. That's Hawkman has wings, like, that are part of his body. Like, so as far as I understand it,
And
has
he
wings that are
expresses
part of his
pain when
body.
they're being ripped, apparently,
Yeah.
because he was doing that.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know where they're going to go with that, but I'm trying to think some more scenes. I did love the brother. He had some good comic relief. I feel like they did the Baby Come Back song, and they were trying to have a really funny moment with him, and that was wrong song, because we've already had a moment in this fantasy genre world where somebody used that as a couple of times, that specific song, and it's like there's a lot of funny songs you could have put in there. I just feel like they could have used a different song.
I mean, just because he was hung up on his ex. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
It was fitting. It was really messed up how bad that he sang. Like, he was a very bad singer.
Yeah.
A very bad singer.
Yeah. I thought he was going to die, when he gets shot. And I was like, oh, okay, well, there you go. And then they take the stakes away a little bit when he doesn't, but it's okay.
The guy that shot him, gold-plated gun. If you're going to tell me ever again that the person with the gold gun is not a villain, you can just go away and stop watching things.
Mm-hmm. And also,
the moment he had a gold gun, I'm like, he's the bad guy.
And that's also, I didn't even notice it was a gold gun. It's even more disbelievable now, because as good as I do, when you got the golden gun, it's a one-shot kill. That's why you go for the golden gun in that game, is because it's the one-shot kill. But little video game humor there. I'm trying to think what else about this movie stood out. What are some other scenes we want to talk about? Sarah, you got anything?
I want to talk about the bad guy real fast, and it's going to be real short.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with any other CGI and not that CGI, I don't understand it, because I completely admit, like, the She-Hulk scenes, some of them were really atrocious with their CGI. I was sitting right there with this same parallel with that guy.
I'll give you that. I didn't particularly like the final look. I didn't like the idea of ripping the horns off as being his, like, the way to defeat him.
Horns off. He ripped them.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I guess
half.
he ripped them in half. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah,
I would have been okay with him ripping the horns off.
I thought that's what they were going for, because of the way he
Yeah.
was holding, I was like, he's gonna snap those things off, but no, I was not prepared for that one.
Well, the villain was somebody. It's funny because, like, you knew right from the get go, right from the jump, from the first scene, from the first time you see him, like, that's the bad guy. Like, I knew right away. I'm like, I'm sure they weren't trying to hide it. If I noticed it that quickly, it had to have been something they were trying to be like, let everybody know, hey, this guy's the bad guy. Especially when he gets crushed in rock, and you're like, okay, he's gonna be back. Don't worry, this guy's the bad guy. But I don't know, man. The crown thing was weird. Like I said, they need to. I need more Black Adam. I need more Justice. I need this story more fleshed out. I think that could be a really good story where they're going. I just don't know where it's going in the future, and especially we'll go ahead and say it, with like the death of Dr. Fate. Like, you have this movie where this is the first time I've seen this character, and now he dies. I'm assuming the helmet's going to be passed on to somebody else. We're going to get a new Dr. Fate, but it's like, damn, I think Pierce Brosnan was like perfect for that role and that part. But I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I don't know how I feel about Hawkman picking up Dr. Fate's helmet and being able to use his powers. Because
they only laid the groundwork for that, so that's the only way that I thought it was acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, because he did say this is a trick he taught me, and they focus on the helmet when it drops and everything else. But it's like, I just feel like with Dr. Fate in that moment, like, if your third option is to call Black Adam and release him and bring him into this fight, why don't you just wait till he gets there before you go in? like just wait till he gets there. Like, don't even go in to fight the villain until he gets there, and then go in and fight him.
You got to, prevent him from getting to that point, or else he gets there a whole lot faster.
That's a good point.
My death has to mean something.
That's true. But I thought they did a good job. Trying to think what else. I guess there's only one real big scene I want to talk about, and that's the mid-credit scene. Which I was telling my friend that this is my favorite part of the movie. It was a good movie. Like we'll go through rankings here in a little while. It was a good movie. It's not perfect by any means, but it was a good movie. But this is by far my favorite part of the movie. Seeing Henry Cavill on the big screen in the suit, talking as Clark Kent, or I was talking to Superman, like it brought a smile on my face. I clapped. I stood up. I was like, yes. Like, there weren't people in the theater, so I didn't care. Amazing, and I love it, and I absolutely love it, and I love that. If all we get out of Black Adam is him coming back as Superman, it's what I needed. Like, I do think it's so funny that so many people have been petitioning for him to come back for so long. And it's no. The Rock's like, yeah, I want Henry Cavill as Superman. Okay, let's do it. Rock. We got you. No problem. Let's do it. It's like, who's running? Like, Warner Brothers Studios, is The Rock running the whole studio?
That's a good question.
It seems like it, like, it seems like it. But hey, I'm glad he fought for him to come back, because I love that. But let's talk about this mid-credit scene. And I had to Google if there was a post-credit, because I'm glad I did, because otherwise I would have sat there the whole time. There's not a post-credit for me watching this. I hadn't seen it yet. But what'd y'all think? Was that a good, nice little snippet for Superman to come in? Were y'all expecting more, maybe a fight, or did y'all get what y'all expected out of that?
Got less than what I expected.
Really? Okay.
Mainly
you expect him to be in the movie?
Well, no. I don't know, man. Like, I'm trying to figure out with the purpose of having him there. Like, would you go big or go home? And I felt like all they did was just show up. No, I mean, literally all he did was show up. I hate it because it mid or post credit scenes seem like they're a promise, and they have to find a way to like deliver. And so, what bothers me is that I don't know what they're doing with this. How do you make a promise now? I think Henry Cavill is a perfect Superman. I think he's fantastic. I love his calm, collected demeanor. The man is clearly like just a set of mass, and then there's so much more about him that there's just so much more you can do with him as Superman. And then to bring him back in a scene like this, and I'm like, well, you didn't do anything. Not only that, he showed up right after her little drone was blown up and she made the threat. Mm-hmm. He literally showed up in the dust of it.
Yeah.
I just needed something else.
I get that. And yeah, I would have wanted something else. Like maybe if you're going to defeat him, like that was another option. That Cavill's coming in. You could have used Superman to come in and defeat him, like the first time he ever plays him. But I don't know. I get what you're saying. You needed something else. I just needed to see it. Like, I needed to see that it was actually real. Because honestly, I'm not going to lie. Even with all the stuff I've read up to this point, I still was like, when am I going to see it? Like, you can ask my friend, like, the movie ended, I was like, it's got to be in the mid-credit scene. Like I know I've got to see Henry Cavill here somewhere. Got to be the mid-credit scene. But I just love to see him in the suit. Sarah, what do you think? Did it work for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Brian actually, I think he stumbled across that as well. He's like, I think I just saw something I wasn't supposed to see. I'm like, well, that happens. I mean, but I mean, it's like Waller, seeing her, it just kind of, she always shows up and just tries to shit talk. She tries to bully. And I mean, I get, that's her character. I get that. Because that's, how it started, in the beginning, bringing in the Justice Society. She's like, I got a problem I need you to handle. And then she just pops in. She's like, oh, hey. So it's like, this is now going to be your prison.
Mhm.
This is where you're going to stay. You will not leave out of here. It's like, oh, really? And who's going to make me? So it's like you got that little level of shit talking back and forth.
Mhm.
But then to see, it's like you knew immediately, it's like you just knew it. You just knew it. So you see it, and then you see him walk in, and everybody's face up, just like, it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, there he is. I think everybody, bringing back Cavill as Superman. Yes, I will take that 100% any day. I will take it. I'm good with it. I mean, I would hate for this to be the only time that you would see him, because that would just suck on so many levels. But I don't know. I mean, if The Rock got him to do this, I mean, maybe there's hope.
Yep.
What does it all mean, Basil? That's where I'm left. Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, what do you do with it? If you're going to put it out in the world, when all the theories were happening, the first thing that I thought was we were still watching Rings of Power, and I'm like, Henry Cavill could be the prince that is promised. He could be that person. He could come back and keep going. But the problem is that Warner Brothers going to fuck it up.
I'm sure
They're going to
will.
do something. Like, somehow, some way, it's going to get screwed up. The rumors keep saying that, he's going to come back and do a Man of Steel 2. Cool rumors. But I'm going to tell you, I felt like I could have watched this movie with, if you don't really touch too heavy on like the whole Justice Society aspect of it, as a standalone movie. If you need Waller to be your Nick Fury and she's going to connect these dots, I'm okay with that. But now you bring in Superman, and I'm like, you're making promises that I'm not sure that your literal checkbook can handle.
Right.
So what are we doing?
And
that's what I've always been afraid of. Like, at the end of Peacemaker earlier this year, the beginning of this year, they bring back the characters. I'm like, okay, but what are you doing? Because no one knows what you're doing. And either you have a plan or you have no plan. And all you're trying to do is just keep people coming back.
Right. That's my biggest fear with it too, man. Like, I love seeing Henry Cavill on screen, but like I was talking to my buddy about this after we got out, and I was like, I want a Man of Steel 2, even though I feel like I want Zack Snyder to direct a Man of Steel 2, because that's the Man of Steel I love, is like the one he created. I don't think that somebody else can't give me a good one. My problem is I don't want Henry Cavill to come back as Superman and him be like Black Adam's biggest villain. Like, I don't want a Black Adam versus Superman movie. I want Black Adam to connect to Shazam.
Yeah.
Like, because it should. And I'm hoping they're not replacing Shazam with Superman. I want to see Superman, but I want to see Superman in a Superman movie, not a Shazam can't handle this, so Superman's going to come in and take out Black Adam because you're putting Henry Cavill and The Rock on screen together. Like, I want to see them on screen together. Now. I don't want it to be the next movie.
I can parse this whole thing out for you real fast. Number one, you come out with the Man of Steel 2. And at the very end of Man of Steel 2, you have him trying to figure out what the connection with Ethereum is to the rest of these two. You have Shazam 2. He does his whole little thing. At the end of Shazam 2, you have him realizing that there's another weird, superpowered person out there who looks like him, but is stuck in one little area of the world and is black, and he's all, red and a kid. Okay, now we're going to turn around, and what are we going to have? We're going to have Black Adam 2, or, we can call it whatever you want to call it, the lightning bolt of doom. And all of a sudden, you have Shazam and Black Adam going at it. And maybe Shazam 3 or Black Adam 2, I don't know, whichever one. Your choice. Pick one. And then what do you have? The conundrum of Superman trying to figure out if it's proper to use Ethereum to take down both of these characters, whereas he would hate being taken down with his own little kryptonite.
That's true.
Boom! You can. That's a 4 to 5 movie thing right there. Sign them up.
There you go.
That's
I'm
a
done.
great plan. That's a really, really good plan. I do
It's
want to
probably
mention
one better one than they have.
It is a plan. Bad plan's better than no plan.
There you go. Good tie back. You know, that's why I like it.
I do want to mention in the chat that Valerian here says, I don't think Dwayne was the person for this character, to be honest. That's interesting because I think for me personally, I think of all the things they did right, which they did a lot of things right, I think he nails the character. The problem with using The Rock in anything like this is he's so much bigger than everybody else. They actually had to de-muscle him for, like, CGI de-muscle him for the other scenes.
Yes.
Like, this guy's so big. Henry Cavill's a huge guy. Like, he's a mammoth guy. The Rock makes him look tiny. And that's the issue with using The Rock is he looks like that suit he's wearing is not a padded suit. Like, that's just like him, you know, and that's the issue. But I don't know. I mean, I guess everybody has their opinion, and maybe if you didn't like The Rock in that role, I mean, it's the character that he's been casted in for years. I think he embodies the character pretty well, but I can get, I guess, to an extent, somebody not liking it. I mean, it's just everybody has their
tough.
taste. Yeah,
it's tough because everyone knows The Rock, and everyone knows The Rock is like a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Cena and Peacemaker, prime example. Cena is so much of the character of Peacemaker. And I think that Black Adam comes from a place where he's 5,000 years old and he's all of a sudden being woken up.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't know what world he's in. You know, he has complete, like an out-of-body experience because he has no idea where he's at. You don't get The Rock in this. You get The Rock's body, but you don't get The Rock.
Right. He's got a lot of bravado and charisma about him usually in his roles that he didn't get to carry with this one. That's a good point. I'm interested to see in the future what happens with The Rock in this Man of Steel thing, because like him being a superhero now, and I'm assuming they're planning on putting him in more movies. I know that in most movies he's in where he's in an action scene, there's always a stipulation where he can't lose, where he can't take more punches than the person who's punching him, where, you know, like, because I know that was a big thing with him and Vin Diesel in like the Fast series. Like both of them had this thing where it was like, well, I can't lose to this guy. Like contractually, I can't lose. And I have to have as many hits as he has type thing. Like they're very, very petty about that, about losing on screen. Maybe it's the wrestling in him coming out. I'm not sure.
Sounds like a family problem.
I want to see how they handle that in the future. And maybe it's not in this stipulations in this contract, but I know in the Fast series, that was a big thing. Like him and Vin Diesel had a thing about both of them wanted to be the top guy, the top dog, you know? And it was like, well, okay. But he did call for Henry Cavill to come to this. So I imagine maybe and it is Superman. So
he wants nothing more than to toe up with Superman.
Yeah.
Problem is that I don't think that that's the right path for them to go down right off the bat.
They need to build up to it. I think that's a good way to go. They need to build up to that. I agree. I need to see Black Adam become a villain for Superman to take him out. I don't feel like Black Adam's a villain right now. He's villainous and he has the potential, but he's not a villain right now. I need to see him become a villain in Shazam, and then Superman help him handle him as a villain. That, like, basically what you laid out there. So,
yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm just excited that we have Henry Cavill back. It's just, it's just amazing. Like I said, I literally stood up and clapped my hands and cheered. I was so excited. It was the best thing I could have seen on screen. I'm so happy this guy's back. And I'll go ahead and make the prediction. We'll get Ben Affleck back too. I know he's coming back for another scene in some movies, but we'll get him back. He'll get recast as Batman again. All these Zack Snyder characters they got rid of and wanted to go totally away from this world, they're realizing are the perfect characters for these roles. Not knocking Pattinson. He does a great job with Batman. I get that. But the characters that he cast for these, well, maybe minus Amber Heard, were perfect for these roles. Well, she was perfect for that role. She's just kind of a piece of shit person. But
did they show all of their faces?
All of whose
I'm trying to remember, like all the Justice League. Like, I know they showed Momoa's body. Did they show his face?
I don't think so. I don't remember seeing anybody else's faces. You're talking about just like from like on the walls, the pictures on the walls and stuff?
No, didn't they do like a live character jump back where they had like Momoa was coming out of like he's like in a ship, but there was steam.
You did see his face. Mm-hmm.
And then you had Batman. I think was he in the armor suit?
Mm-hmm. He was in one of them, yeah, because he was like up high. It was like from
looking down.
Mm.
And so like there were so many like fast clips of that stuff in this movie. And once again, as I'm sitting there, I'm like, this means nothing if you don't do with it
If you don't do
what you should do with it. And that's what I kept getting worried about. And I'm going to stand by it because I'm in the camp, like you said, Greg, that if they do something with it, by all means, like carry those characters and keep pushing forward. You can erase everything backwards and call it whatever you want to. Like if Flash is your way of making this happen, by all means make it happen and hopefully change the Flash character. But
got to
keep all these other characters, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. Okay, so I'm trying to think. Is there anything else y'all want to bring up about this? Any scenes that stood out for y'all? I know I'm going to go see this again, so I'll probably have more to say about it as we continue, the show. But was there anything else that stood out in y'all's minds? So we're doing spoilers, but we're not trying to spoil the entire movie for people. So
I don't know what much is left.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
well, I
people
want to
get
rank.
punched and die.
Yeah, it's got some good action in it. I want to rank this then, just like in where I'm looking at this movie, because people are going to ask me what I thought of it. This is a good movie. It's not the best thing DC's put out, but it's damn sure not the worst thing DC's put out. So I rank it like this: like I've got BVS, Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Zack Snyder's Justice League, top 4 in that order. Best thing DC's put out movie wise. Everything else after that, all the Suicide Squads, like all these other movies. Harley Quinn, like those movies were okay, but they weren't the best for me. Black Adam is above all those movies. Wonder Woman 84, even Aquaman. Like Aquaman's just a tick below those, but like Black Adam's above all those. So below the top 4, I'm putting Black Adam at number 5. Maybe it's recency bias. Maybe I need to see it again to analyze it a little more. But I really enjoyed my viewing last night. I came out with a smile on my face, and once again, the end with Henry Cavill probably had a lot to do with that. But all in all, while there were problems with this movie where I feel like we wanted more of Justice Society, I like where this movie left me with possibilities moving forward. And I'm hoping, like Ross says, they do something with this because they can, and they can have a really, really good future moving forward with this. And I think they set themselves up well with a big name like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, bringing back Henry Cavill, having new characters introduced, and I mean, it's a win-win for everybody if they make the right moves going forward. So for me, I'm going to put it right below the Zack Snyder stuff, like 5th. It's better than most of the other stuff they've come out with in DC after Zack Snyder.
Question.
So,
would you still believe the same if that mid-credit scene didn't exist?
I think so. To be honest with you, I would. I mean, I don't know if I would feel as good. I mean, having that definitely gives me a brighter look to the future. But even minus that, I still think it was a pretty good movie. Like, I'm fighting with this one and Aquaman being like, that next spot, because I felt kind of like I felt walking out of Aquaman, and I did with this one. Like, wow, I really enjoyed what I just saw. There were some problems, but I like what I see in this, and I see a future. I didn't get that out of Wonder Woman 84, Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn, any of that stuff. They were okay movies, but I didn't get any of that out of there. So like I said, for me, this one's fighting right now with Aquaman for being that 5th spot, but I think I could probably take it. But I need to watch Aquaman again to make a fair adjustment. I know I didn't ask y'all this, is kind of blind, but just do y'all have an idea of where it might sit for y'all?
I put it at 6.
You put it at 6?
Yeah.
Are your top 4 the same top 4 as mine?
Yes,
Okay.
but I think I liked Aquaman better than Black Adam.
Okay. That's fair. And I may come to that conclusion if I do a viewing of Aquaman again, but they're almost the same movie for me as far as excitement. So it's right there at it. Ross?
I'm not sure that I've watched Aquaman.
Really? You should check it
Sorry.
out.
Do you have homework? You have homework.
Check it out. It was a pretty good one.
It was better than I had originally anticipated. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen, and it's probably too much from other movies. Just bits and pieces of it through like so much of the other stuff that went through it, because that was a Justin Lin movie, I think, and I think I watched like the behind the scenes and some other stuff that went with it. I like Man of Steel. I thought that was a really good movie. BVS, like Greg, I mean, you've always made great points about it, but I mean, I think Man of Steel is probably the DC wise, probably the top of it.
I get that.
all the Justice League movies were still kind of too soon for me. Like, because I like the building aspect, so I like the other movies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was. I don't have a very good ranking system when it comes to DC movies.
I hear you. Well, let me ask you this then: did you
Yeah.
like it better than the Squad movies and Harley Quinn?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the Harley Quinn movie was interesting because it was like I felt like that was an extended universe movie. I felt like
Yeah,
that was like its
100%.
own take.
Mhm.
As much as the Suicide Squad movies also feel like that. But yeah, it was a much better open to closed movie than those movies for sure.
Mhm.
I didn't feel like there was necessarily more that you needed. I was left wanting, but you didn't need from open to close. You didn't need anything.
Right.
It told its own little story.
And you know what I just thought about and I realized is I didn't even include the Batman in my listing of movies. I need to put that in the ranking because I guess technically that is DCEU, but that's how different that movie feels for me. Like that movie feels like a completely different universe than these
Yeah.
movies. And I get it, you know, it's supposed to, but like it feels totally out of place. Not saying it's a bad movie, but it feels totally out of place in this universe.
It doesn't bring
I
the
just can't
comic book feeling into it.
I can't
Yeah.
compare it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's. I just feel like it's different categories.
Mhm.
It's like different classifications.
Mhm. Yeah, like
And
I said,
that's
I don't just. Okay.
It's like Joker.
Yeah, same way with Joker. Yeah,
So
I
totally
was going
different
to say that's
category.
when we were describing last week, talking about She-Hulk. That's like the way I feel about like that, you know, because it's being a comedy and everything else. Like it feels so far like out, not so far out of the MCU, but it just feels so different than like the other stuff they produced. And like Batman's a prime example. The Batman is a good movie. Like
Yeah.
it's a good open to close, you know, where they call a year two Batman movie. But at the same time, like it's not what you're a part of in the rest of it. And that's why I say like I hate using the term Snyderverse or the Zack Snyder, whatever. Like that's what DC was aiming for because that's what they put their eggs in that basket. This had more of that feeling.
Mhm.
I like all the characters. I like who they choose for all these people. You know, I mean, like you're right. Like the casting has been pretty damn on point.
Mhm.
Wonder Woman 84. You know, like that tried to tell a story that I don't think anyone was ready for. You know, like Patty's made some good stuff, but that was a fluke.
That one was rough.
And I really
Yeah.
think that's really screwed up. You know, Rogue Squadron on top of some other things, but that's more background, deeper knowledge. So
Mhm. I don't know, man. That's like I said with the Batman. You know, I was having the same discussion with my buddy last night because he loves the Batman movie, which is great because it is a good movie. I can see why people love it. You know, but I'm not gonna lie. I've tried rewatching that movie about 3 times, and I have to turn it off every time I'm rewatching it. I just it's not. I don't know what it is. It's just like I'm just like I'm not as interested in this as I should be. Like when
that
I
movie
turn
tries to
on,
do a lot of things.
yeah.
If
I
you
mean, it's a
really
good
break it down,
story.
it does a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a good story, and I'm really excited for the future of that universe. Like I want to see what happens, you know, moving forward with this Batman. But just something about it, like I'm still more loyal to this connected bendy fingers DC universe than I am that stuff that's kind of outside of it, you know. So I'm still gonna give Batman a chance. I still enjoy it. It's just I still am yet to be able to rewatch the whole thing from beginning to end without like stopping it to go do something because I'm like, oh well, I'm not as invested in this movie as I think I should be. You know, I don't know, but different takes for everybody. We've rambled for a while. Y'all got anything else about Black Adam? Any final points?
Give it a shot. See what you think. I mean,
agree.
The Rock has rightfully been championing this thing for a very long time.
Mhm.
So hopefully he's able to do more with it.
Mhm.
Hopefully he's able to do more with all of this. And who cares if comic book characters kill people?
Agreed.
Death happens.
Death happens when you have battles. Death happens. I agree. I can't wait to start tackling people online about this. I almost did this morning. I was like, nah, I don't want to get involved in this quite yet. Let me do the review first. Oh, one last point I wanted to make because this is funny. What was his name? Teff Adams. Right.
So I was told.
So like, they're calling him Teff Adams the whole time, and then like at the very end, he's like, I need something that's a little more modern. So instead of Tiff, call me Black. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second.
Sir.
like, how is that more modern? Like, that was the only thing I was thinking. It was like, Tiff is actually pretty close to Jeff, which would actually be more modern. It's like your last name is Adam. Like that's pretty modern, like, but they changed it to be more modern from Tiff to Black. And I was like, well, I get is Black Adam is the character, but like saying to do it to be more modern or like to be more of the times, I was like, that's not really. That was a bad explanation for that. Should have been like, this is
Why
what I
don't you
want to
just
call it.
stick with Adam? I mean, like, I know it was 5,000 years ago, but it still has like biblical reference.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. But I just thought that was funny. He's like, I'm gonna change it from Tiff to Black, be more modern. I'm like, okay, gotcha. no
It's
problem.
like, we can't use master, we can't use like slave, you can't say
Yeah.
black, you can't do like, you got to stop with all of that.
But all right, well, let's go and get out of here then. That was a great movie. I had a good time with it. Of course, it had its problems, but I would recommend everybody go see it. I think it's if you enjoy the DC universe, you'll enjoy this movie.
Mhm.
I mean, it was better than a lot of the stuff that they put out. But that way, it's a good revival for them to come back to theaters and have a decent movie, I think. So, what was the last one we got? The last one we got was The Batman, which was killer. It was a great movie, but it wasn't, like I said, I don't feel like it's part of this universe. And I feel like a lot of people would feel the same way. It's kind of adjacent to this universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's get out of here. Sarah, where can they find
Do
you
it
at?
to it.
You can find me on the Twitter at My Lady Kitten. I just kind of bounce around. I've been lately all up in the, like I said, the Panther tweets, but other than that, that's just the world we live in.
Yeah. A lot of Panthers news to tweet about, too. Let me tell you. So, Ross, where can you find you at, buddy?
Working those obliques for those freaks.
There you go. Right, yeah. Correct?
Oh, yeah.
And you can find me on Twitter at the BatDaddy52 is my personal handle. Check out at GCS Podcast 1 is the show handle. We're here every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. You can catch the audio on any podcatcher of your choice. I usually put the audio out immediately after the show, especially covering shows that the new one comes out the next day. But give us a like, give us a review, share with a friend, put some comments in the chat if you come into the chat. And we do try to interact with the chat room as you go. So if you want to be part of the show, come check us out. But until next week, y'all keep pounding.
Bye, guys.
Later.